journey to an inaugural championship steps in front of the pagoda, an outstanding beacon shining in the racing capital of the world. We're live from Speedway, Indiana. The KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to round number 16 and the second race of the opening round in the 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So glad that you're with us on the KBueno Racing Network tonight. We're in the broadcast booth for this evening's race. I am Kenneth Bueno. Well, we're in the middle of a very volatile opening round of these 2025 playoffs, and as we get into the very details of this, we stepped out of a 1.5 miles. We're now in a 2.5 mile rectangle, and then we close it out with a road course. What a way to try and whittle out the field from 16 to 12 as we continue on with this great season that we've had up until this point. And after Charlotte, the way things shook up the standings, we'll get into the details of that in just a couple of moments. But sitting where we are, second round of these playoffs, second one in the round of 16. We were just fresh off of Charlotte last Sunday night. Indianapolis tonight, our first and only race at this type of speedway, and probably one of several tracks, maybe a few on the 2025 schedule that are built very uniquely, not in a cookie cutter format, not a road course, not anything else in between. They are very specific types of tracks that play a big role in how the drivers play into the season, and of course how they structure themselves up for what will be a run ultimately to Homestead of Miami Speedway later on this season. But tonight in Indianapolis should be a ton of fun. This is a driver's racetrack and one the NASCAR the Cup Series just visited not that long ago, a reunion with the oval action of this speedway to make it a Brickyard 400 reunion. But now we're making it a very much staple here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series for 2025. Well, let's dive into how things unfolded last Sunday night in the home of NASCAR, Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're on the front row. That was Ethan Fonseca Moreno, has the most poles of anyone with 4. Maggio on the outside. It didn't take long for us to find Copper fighting at the front of the field. There's Ross Harlow on the outside of the race leader. And then eventual contact. Moreno getting sent around at the exit of turn 2. Thankfully was able to save his car from the inside wall, and he kept on going. But one of the slowing down moments of this race, and then big time chaos between playoff drivers Richard Swavely, Justin Erb among those getting involved in an incident. Cedric Hunter getting a piece of that, reignited the battle for the lead at the front. Moreno would step in front of Warren Kyle Keith, and he had pitted on that caution, so was able to walk away with the stage 1 victory, his second of the 2025 season. Stepped away, and all of a sudden, car went out from under. Stephen Harlow captured multiple other drivers in this kip, easily getting a huge hit to the front end of his car, took him out of the race. Brandon Banks, Ross Harlow among those involved. Then at the front, Lawson Peel able to take away the lead. Moreno and him would engage in a lap-by-lap battle that basically would not tire out until Cedric Hunter found his way to the front, crossed the line first, was able to capture his 3rd career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series stage win, first at Charlotte, and then the spinner on a long green flag run. Maggio getting turned around by Lawson Peel. That was under strategy, by the way. A lot of that came down to drivers coming down pit road, getting some fresh tires in the midst of the group, and all of a sudden, there was drama at the front. Everyone getting involved. Moreno, Maggio, Peel, you name it, all of them up at the front of the field, and then it would ultimately set up for a run to the finish line, squandered by a late race yellow. James Kunkel getting turned around by Brad Fulham, exit of turn 2. That would set up the first of 2 overtime attempts. You would have to finish the race, and here was the settle in the deal for Stephen Maggio. Stayed out on old Goodyear Eagles. He would try to hold on for as long as possible, but then on the white flag lap, Cedric Hunter to the inside of the racetrack, making easy work of the 97, and Cedric Hunter would cruise to his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory. After many tries, many good finishes, and many runner-up areas, Cedric Hunter finally able to get the victory. So with all of that, settles out our round of 16 as we enter this middle race of the round. Cedric Hunter with that W, of course, advances straight into the second round of the playoffs. He will visit the rest of the field at Texas with a chance at running actually on leveled points. A lot of the front runners at the field getting good runs, of course, Lawson Peel, Zachary Hall, Ross Harlow getting good points off of a solid Charlotte race, but things really shake up. 9th on back, Chris Progar with a whale of a race at Charlotte. Great stage 1 finish and a lot of good points picked up. He ends up moving up to 9th, Richard Swavely up to 8th, and then the troubles persist for all those that were taken out of the race late in that Charlotte going kip easily. Stephen Harlow, they're going to be at the bottom end of the round of 16 here, going to try and scrap their way out. It is a 2-point gap separating Kip easily in 13th, Eric Schaefer up in 12th, and then obviously those at the back end. Alex Muscarella exited Charlotte early. He has to crawl his way through this round of 16. And then Timothy Stubblefield missed out on last week's race in Charlotte, so he will have to try and recoup the points lost. Did not gain anything after Charlotte on Sunday, so he will try to pick some things up tonight from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And this is one of those tracks where it is an all-time classic. Out in Speedway, Indiana, this track, born in 1909, has hosted more than 109 runnings of the Indianapolis 500. NASCAR came here in the mid-90s for the Brickyard 400, and ever since, that relationship has blossomed very well. From the road course back to the oval, this track has it all. 2.5 miles, 9.2 degrees in the corners, all of them the very same, but they handle very differently in their own way, and that would be the challenge for a lot of the drivers here in tonight's race. Well, let's get a look at our KBRN onboard lap. This was actually me this time, putting in some laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, just trying to get myself organized, but this is what we should expect to see. A downshift into 4th gear, try to get that car as low as possible near the rumble strip, but not on it. That transition can easily kick out the rear tires and send you spinning. Then the trouble area of the racetrack, turn 2, very easy to either overcorrect the race car or wash up to the outside wall. Thankfully, I didn't there. It was not many of the mistakes I made during the actual practice session that you're not seeing. Very strong run into turn 3 on the long back straightaway. You're nearing 195 miles an hour. Then braking back into 4th gear. Try and wiggle it through the short true. Try to get it right back to the bottom. Lay off the throttle. You see a bit of understeer there. You'll see a lot of drivers face the right front tire in the middle of dirty air, screaming for grip. You may often hit that outside wall, as we'll see. But then there's a lap at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I promised I tried my best to get a good lap at Indy. It is a pretty tough track to drive, not one for the faint of heart, and it'll be the stage for tonight's race as the drivers get ready through qualifying and put themselves on the row for the starting grid. Well, drivers are sitting behind the iRacing official pace car, so let's take you trackside and give you a live look at your starting grid for race number 16 and the second race of these Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs in 2025. We're on the front row. It is Steven Stepien, the winner from Worldwide Technology Raceway. Earlier this season, going to try and scrap himself out from the pole position, 52.524, enough to get the 88 car on the front row. With last week's race winner, Cedric Hunter, right off of the W at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. He'll try to go 2 in a row for his own good, but for right now, he is locked in with no worries. Steven Maggio and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, pair of teammates on the inside and outside of the second row. Maggio looking for his 3rd career victory. Moreno still looking for win number 1, as he's had very good runnings, and Charlotte did not go his way. Ross Harlow, back and forth evening at Charlotte, but a strong race car regardless. He rolls off from 5th. Zachary Hall in the number 23 car. Great finish at the end of Charlotte. Given the overtime attempts, he was able to put himself in the top 5. He ends up in the top 6 here through qualifying. Richard Swabley, great run at Charlotte, got him some good points to elevate in the top 16. He's comfortably above the cut line, but trying to stay there in 7th place on the starting grid tonight. Eric Schaefer, that first man in as of right now through the top 12. He's going to try and get himself more of a buffer as he rolls off from the 8th position. Back in row number 5, you'll find the 9th place starter. That is TOW Racing's Justin Erb. Warren Kyle Keith, the St. Augustine, Florida native, going to roll off from the outside in the position of 10. And then back in row number 6 is where you'll find Chris Progar. Lines up his number 7 Chevrolet on the inside of the row in 11th. 12th place will go to the 8 car of Kip Easley. That is a entry for Drinkin' Bros Racing. Back in row number 7, that's where you'll find Stephen Harlow, who crashed out of last week's race at Charlotte, looking for a big-time rebound tonight. And Craig Parks in his number 17 Chevrolet, Talladega winner, going to look to get his second win of the season and advance into the next round. Alex Muscarella exited Charlotte early last week. We'll look to pick back up here from Indy. Justin Hendry will roll off in 16th on the 48 cars outside in the 8th row. Back in row 9 is where you'll find the 42 car of James Kunkel. On his outside, the 94 machine of Timothy Stubblefield, making his first playoff start. Missed out on the race last Sunday night. Then back in row number 10, you'll find Lawson Peel. Average start of 20.9. And it doesn't change here for the 5-time winner. Rolls off 19th with his teammate Brandon Banks on the outside in 20th. Back in row number 11, first ever start. Welcome Jeff Gilmore to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. He'll be 21st. Casey Knighton back in 22nd for the D Legacy Motor Club team. And then back in the final row of the field, Brad Fulham in the 19 car, 23rd. Kevin Roy back in 24th place. Setting up for a doozy here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's get a look at our SK Sim Racing race analysis before we get the green flag tonight. 125 laps. This race was initially scheduled to be 150. That's nearly full-length distance for a NASCAR Cup Series race here at Indianapolis, but they did shorten the length. It's just a little bit over 312 miles, and our stages set up as so. 30 laps each for first stage and the second stage. 65 laps as we dive into the final stage of the race. That's our SK Sim Racing race analysis for tonight's event from Indianapolis. It is just the third career pole this season for Steven Stempien, who after last week's race at Charlotte had a lot of miscues trying to get himself back in the running for the championship. He'll try and reset tonight, and it's a good looking spot to do so. Front row sitting with Cedric Hunter trying to bounce off of that heavy momentum from last week's race at Charlotte. After capturing his first win, he'll try to go back to back and give another drivers a harder chance at advancing via a race win. Off turn 4, pace car makes its way to the inside of pit road. Stempien and Cedric Hunter will take the field through the restart zone, and to the Art of Bricks, we are racing from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Oh, in trouble. Moreno already around at the short chute of turn 3. Stempien washed up high, and the first yellow flag of the race is ignited from the man reacting on the inside. Ethan Fonseca Moreno bringing out the opening yellow of the race, and it just about stacked up everybody as they were in the middle of turns 3 and 4. Stempien, you saw him get near the outside wall, and all of a sudden things unraveled in a very tough way. Moreno, the 4-time pole sitter, well, his search for a first victory will have to last maybe a little longer if he's not able to recoup tonight, as we'll get a look at how that all unfolded. And it was based off of the mistake. We saw how in turns 3 and 4 it can be very easy for drivers to go up near the outside wall and accidentally make a mistake. Well, that's exactly what happened here to Stempien. Car on the inside, that's that silver and black Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet. He'll make the move down low, and the car immediately carries up the banking. Moreno's going to send it to the bottom. They're faint 3 wide. That's where Stempien backs it up. Moreno slides and gets into Zachary Hall. That's some heavy front-end nose damage for the North Carolinian of Zachary Hall, who ended up in the top 3 at the end of the race at Charlotte just last Sunday, and all of a sudden finds himself in trouble. So here's a look on board with the Toyota Camry of Hall. There's nowhere to go when there's a moment like that. Moreno getting sent to the inside, heavy right front damage. And for Hall, that nose damage is going to hurt him significantly. We've seen at these larger tracks, you know, Pocono was a good example. We saw how much front-end nose damage, any bit of damage to the left or right side of the car will affect your top speed down the straightaway. You know, Pocono has a long back straightaway and has a very long entry into turn 1. Indianapolis has these 2 very long straightaways at the front and back end of the speedway. You get any bit of nose damage like that, miles per hour will be shaved off your top speed. And when you're in the middle of the draft, that will matter big time, as Hall will take his Toyota down to pit road. There's Ross Harlow, who got some damage as well from the spinning Moreno. Stempien got the touch of the outside barrier, and in all of that, Cedric Hunter will take over the race lead as he stepped out in front right after they carried out of turn 2. Stempien did not have a response, and so the Canadian will have a chance up front and lead a couple of laps here through lap number 3. well, not the way you really want to start at all if you are any one of these drivers finding trouble on the opening lap. And we saw a bit of that at Charlotte, not from the first lap of the race, but from the midway portion of the race. After a restart, driver spun the rear tires. We saw a pretty significant crash, and one of those crashes involved Cedric Hunter. Slightly had some right front damage, and all of a sudden was able to get his car fixed and ultimately survive to end up winning that race at the end of those 2 overtime attempts. And so he will bring the field under our first ever caution flag from Indy as the field will pace around. And we're going to keep an eye on those drivers that did come out of pit road. Moreno, with that early right front damage, is going to send some time in on the pit lane, just trying to make sure he can nurse this car all the way to the end. But good news is, opening lap scuffle, you can get your car refixed and all of a sudden back out on the speedway without any problems at all on the racetrack, as there's Timothy Stubblefield taking some extra time on pit road. Not sure if there was damage on the Daytona winner, but ends up on pit road regardless. There's Zachary Hall, quick fix to his Toyota Camry, and he is back underway. And so he will bring up the field from 21st. Not a big field tonight from Indianapolis, only 24 cars deep, but we saw at Charlotte just around the same marker of 20 to 25-ish drivers, and Hall will have to restart at the back. Going to be a very tough scenario here at Indianapolis. Not quite easy to pass for a lot of the drivers in this field. And, you know, a driver like Zachary Hall is known for his flat-out consistency. Hasn't won a race so far in 2025, but look at the last 2 starts. That includes Daytona and, of course, the opening race of the playoffs at Charlotte. Average finish of 3.5 with 5 top 3 finishes this season. That includes 3 consecutive, and I mean 3 consecutive runner-up finishes to the eventual race winner. Hall has been this close, but he has not been there yet. And it's a quick setback here on the opening lap of this Indianapolis race. He will bring it up from the outside of the row. That's going to be the 10th row on the racetrack. Ross Harlow around him. And Steven Stepien, we saw his Chevrolet ignite the trouble there out of turn 3. He'll back up the field from 16th place on the restart. So again, this being the second race of this round of 16, we will close out the round next week at the virtual Watkins Glen International Circuit, that being just our second road course race of the year. We had Road America earlier on this season. That was a fun one to watch. Plenty of chaos, but obviously a lot of Lawson Peel going on winning that race. But Watkins Glen could be the chance for a lot of these other road course ringers spending time at the front of this field, getting their shot at least making inroads here. And this may be the most impactful playoff round of them all. You think of the round of 12 and even the round of 8 heading into the championship finale at Homestead, Miami. Not any of those rounds are really as wild in track diversity as you'll find here in this round of 16, between a 1.5 mile, 2.5 mile rectangle, and then a road course to cap things off. You'll see a lot more of the same types of track when you get into the round of 12 and round of 8, but we will get this race restarted here at lap number 5 very early on into stage number 1. So Cedric Hunter at the front of the field. As soon as the yellow flag came out, he will command the field back to green. Our first trip to the restart zone and back to the green flag. Maggio to react on the outside. Green flag from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hunter out and away before turn 1. Solid getaway by Hunter. Maggio second, Keith in third. First battle, P6. Kip easily trying to make it work on the inside of Chris Progar. 3-car battle out of turn 2. See the kiss of the sides of the race car between Eric Schaefer running into tonight's race right on that 12th spot in the cut line. And staying above Steven Stepien, the fight for 14th, igniting in turn 4. As Hunter's pulled away to about 0.2 of a second back to the second place car of Steven Maggio. Out to the bottom end is Chris Progar, and the TOW Racing Chevrolets will try and duke it out as they head back to turn 1. And Progar makes good use of the entry of turn 1 and the exit of turn 4. Going to be able to stay ahead as he rolls just inside of the top 5. And a really big win, really big race for Pogar, the Wisconsin native, as he stepped into the opening round of the playoffs, got a really good finish at Charlotte Motor Speedway with all things considered, and through the stages was able to use strategy to play out in his favor through stage 1. After the first 50 laps of that race, stepped up into the second place spot and got some really good points after that in stage 2. And after all the strategy, Pogar was able to step out in front, and him and Richard Swavely, now running 4th and 5th on the racetrack, they have been able to really step up in a time of need where after Daytona barely looked like they were going to be in this playoffs at all. They were at the very bottom of the barrel, 15th and 16th in points. No playoff points to their benefit, or no bonus points as well. So Swavely and Pogar really had to dig their way out. And so far here at Indianapolis, only 7 laps in, but very good track position to begin. And so far, making use of it early on as Swavely holds on to 4th. Battle for 2nd really crept up there at the exit of turn 2 on the last time by. Keith was able to make his move to the inside. And 2-time winner this season, Stephen Maggio. One of his wins came at that 2.5-mile triangle over in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. And Keith, the other end of the situation through that late race start. That late race situation was turned at the exit of turn 1 by the nose of Stephen Maggio. Very frustrated at the end of that race. And Keith is going to try and get himself back in. Very close to race victories. He's led a ton of laps in 2025, but this blank red and white Toyota Camry sponsored by Target is going to try to get all the way to the front, and still a bit of tenths to go before he can catch up to the race leader in Cedric Hunter. So the battle for 2nd will continue down to turn 3. Meanwhile, back in P6, that's where you find the Columbus, Mississippi native of Lawson Peel. And again, no surprise that we're seeing Peel move up to the front early and overall in this season. That's been the story of it all. 20.9. That's the average start for Peel throughout the course of the season. And in that time, he's captured 5 race victories. A lot of them at very different types of racetracks. And has easily cemented himself as the dominant driver. And then after Charlotte last week, where he picked up a solid finish and ran a ton of laps up front, got some stage points as well, he was able to cement himself as that 2nd place driver in the point standings. We've talked about those 27 bonus points he had going into the opening round of the postseason, and now he's 49 points above the cut line with a track right now that is in his wheelhouse and a road course next week that easily suits his racing style. Lawson Peel looks to be a breeze entering the next round in the round of 12. It starts at Texas in a couple weeks' time. And he'll hold off Justin Erb here. The fight for 6th place simmering down just a little bit as Stephen Harlow gets the outside, actually the inside there. Kip Easley, battle for 8th. Talk about Charlotte races that really took drivers for a whirl. One of those being Stephen Harlow, who was on the bad end of luck. We talked about in that highlight reel the overcorrection there out of turn 4 that cost Harlow a race, and his car was basically totaled from there. Still ended up running for the rest of the event, but for Harlow, things really haven't been that well for the 11 car. Crashed last week, that's where he finished in 20th, and his last top 10, you have to go all the way back to Worldwide Technology Raceway and Gateway to find the last solid finish for Harlow. Even then, a race where Harlow found trouble at the exit of turn 4, and one of the igniters of that late race restart that ended up with the victory in Steven Stempien's hands was a crash involving Harlow himself, where he caught Brandon Banks at the exit of turn 4, just got a bit too loose and initially saved the car, but then found trouble right after, and that's where all the mayhem started. But for Harlow, just trying to get back into momentum ways, and the Project Hopner Chevrolet will step into 8th as he'll watch the battle for 6th underway between Lawson Peel and the TOW Racing 20 car of Justin Erb. So Hunter in the race lead right now. It's still about half a second between the top 2 drivers. Keith has pulled away from Stephen Maggio, but not by much. It's only a tenth or 2 that Keith has been able to make a proper difference at the non-playoff driver right behind. But for Hunter has been able to step up in front. Lap time is very similar, although Keith just a little bit faster. 52.695 for the Florida native, and for Hunter stepping up 52.854. So the gap is starting to shrink, but albeit very slow between these 2 drivers as we cross the lap 12. It'll be a very quick end to this stage should we stay green. When you think about 30 laps at a 2.5 mile rectangle. Not exactly the easiest. For Cedric Hunter, it seems to be smooth sailing and already had that great start from the way he stepped up on the outside of Steven Stepien. So far, only one top 5 or outside top 10 finish rather in the last 5 or so races, 4 of those being inside the top 6, including 3rd and 2nd over the first 2 races in April, Michigan and Pocono, and then back in 6th place to kick off the Nashville Super Speedway race, and then that Gateway race, which was technically his last start, back in 11th place before we rejoined the field here at Charlotte. Was not part of that Daytona race to finalize the regular season, but so far so good for the Canadian as he watches from the back end with our Charlie Bauer Photography onboard camera. You can hear those revs very high up in the end of 4th gear. That's what you have to do to maintain speed here at Indy, and even though this is a rather large track, much like Pocono, you really got to play with the gearbox a little bit. That's one of those features of the next-gen car that gets the drivers in for a bit of a spin, and they have to deal with that all season long. We'll have to deal with a brand new update next week, because next Tuesday is the brand new Season 3 2025 iRacing build, and with that comes a brand new update for these next-gen cars. Greg West on the iRacing forums, I believe it was Greg Hill rather, posted a forum talking about the development updates, what they're planning to do for the future on iRacing, what they're planning to reveal and unveil to the public in Tuesday's Season 3 update. And one of those was a rehaul of this next-gen car, which includes a CFD-based aero model, a brand new tire that comes over from the GTP car that they used in development to kind of enhance the realism of the prototype class in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship side of iRacing. And here on the next-gen side of things with the NASCAR Cup Series car, they have put in the new tire. I think they're doing the same with the Indy car, so this next-gen car will look and feel very differently once we get to Watkins Glen next week on June 15th. So the drivers will have roughly about 4 to 5 days to get themselves acclimated with the new car, and then even a bit more time on Sunday to get themselves acclimated with the competition and how it drives Watkins Glen. So the top 3 have pulled away. They're nearly 2.5 seconds above the next line of cars here, starting in 4th place. That is where you find Richard Swavely holding up the group of 4. That's Chris Pogard, Justin Erb, and Lawson Peel. And we remember Erb in that situation last week at Charlotte was part of that restart scuffle that did involve the 32 car, just 2 car lengths in front of him. And Erb had been in a setback ever since then. And going into tonight's race, it is a only 4-point buffer separating Erb at the 11th place to then Craig Parks back in 12th. And as Erb settles out of turn 3, we'll have a good run here. Lawson Peel will try to get to the back end of turn 4. This entire group and now building to nearly 6 cars. Eric Schaefer and Stephen Harlow, keep in mind where they are sitting right behind this group. And here comes Peel. Inside look for P6. And an easy move made for the Columbus, Mississippi native. But that's something you'll see here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a track that increasingly over the run gets harder to pass. So you'll see a lot of drivers struggle for grip, either on the inside of outsider or fellow competitors. As Schaefer breaks loose there out of turn 2, is able to gather it all up as they get down to turn 3. But you'll see a lot of these premeditated passes. That one with Peel coming out of turn 4, had to think about it down the straightaway. The drafting helps a ton. And if you can sling that car to the inside and make the move before turn 1 or turn 3, it'll be very good for you over the course of the run. You won't as nearly, with the other drivers, have to deal with as much dirty air, as much of a struggle-filled race car. And Peel makes that move. Erb will settle back with a couple taps to the outside wall. Damaged Chevrolet will reel in Stephen Harlow running back in P8. So more than halfway through stage number 1 here at Indianapolis. Here's the onboard look from the rookie driver for KBueno Racing, Stephen Maggio. And stunned the field after his first career victory at the Pocono Raceway, and then stepped on himself and basically doubled down as he walked away with a dominant late race W at Nashville Super Speedway. A ton of laps there, and here he is, outside look in turn 3, daring charge on the 9.2 degrees of banking from Warren Kyle Keith. This battle will take its way to turn 4. Maggio will step ahead, and the Maggio Chevrolet makes his move and is up to the running-up spot once again. So we keep an eye on those two, although that battle sort of got themselves away from the eventual race leader. Now it's half a second separating Hunter and Maggio. So all that bit of side-by-side action is enough to shave off a tenth or two off their advantage. And now they'll have to hit the reset button and try again. Boy, Key had to really wrestle that Toyota Camry out of turn 2. Nearly made a kiss to the outside wall there off of the second corner. But he's able to gather it up, slow the race car in enough time. But that will lose him a lot of ground back to Steven Maggio, so the gap will grow to about 0.6 of a second as Maggio will go on and try to chase the current race leader, trying to step away with his 4th career stage victory of the season. And then, of course, Lawson Peel still with his carving method through the field. Got by Chris Progar the last lap through off of turn 4, and already setting up this pass for turn 1. Here on 4th place, Richard Swaley on board with Peel going into the corner. A lot of the patient eye for Lawson Peel. This is a track that he very much adores. Same with Zachary Hall, a track that he very much favors and is going into this one as the de facto favorite. There comes Peel to the inside. Dive under the blue and yellow Napa Auto Care Chevrolet and try and get to the inside of the dark gray and red Heavy's Toyota Camry. Easy move in turn 3. And for the first time tonight, Lawson Peel has moved up into the top 4 as Swavely backs up in turn 3, rather. That's going to be in turn 4 where Chris Progar is going to be able to make a move off of the final corner. So just a quick update on the drivers involved in our opening lap scuffle. Steven Stempien, he's in the midway part of this huge line of cars going back to about 10th or so. And that's the 8th place car, Stempien, that Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet, getting fixed and all cleaned up for what is this long green flag run of tonight with 10 laps to go in the opening stage. Stephen Harlow is going to be under fire from Zachary Hall. So although there was some heavy front end nose damage for the Newport, North Carolinian, he's been able to fully fix his Camry, and he'll most likely set up a pass here on the 11 car as soon as he's able to get good momentum, possibly next time by out of turn 4. The only driver that really hasn't been able to pick up the lost ground is, of course, the driver who was spun around at the exit of turn 3. Ethan Fonseca Moreno did get his Red Bull Chevrolet fixed up and ready to go, but he's back in 13th place. Still a bit of ground to make up before he can catch up to the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina native, Brandon Banks, running in 12th with his teammate Eric Schaefer up the road. And a bit of a quiet run so far for the 16 machine, that Tilva Holla Project Chevrolet. Ross Harlow really hasn't been able to make up all that much time to the race leaders. It's been a really very effortless run throughout tonight's race for Harlow, but just hasn't been able to put himself in the spotlight so far. And wrestling this car to turn 2 with a rear end stepped out there at the top end of 4th gear and loses a bit of time to Moreno there as they come out of the corner. But first proper battle inside the top 6 or so. They are continuing to accordion together, and Chris Progar was at the firing squad at the mercy of them. There's Stephen Harlow, Zachary Hall finally peeking down low to the inside as they come to turn 4. And Progar loses about 2 to 3 spots in the matter of about 3 laps. Took him a little while to weave through the field, but this is where things are really starting to get dicey with 9 laps to go in stage 1. So it is Peel, Swavely, Stempien, Progar, and now this battle for 8th. As Hall makes the move to the inside, feints, look down low. Progar going to have to step down to the inside. And here comes Hall with all of that drafting help to the outside. Stephen Harlow faintly helping there, just about a car length or 2 back. Progar was settled in line, and he'll remain in 9th with Harlow hot on his tail, just trying to get him inside further the top 10 with some stage points on the line. We saw a lot of drivers miss out on stage points at Charlotte. Most notably, Stempien was one of them. Ross Harlow had been in a position where he was just on the outskirts of the top 12, so they had to deal with outside top 10 finishes in both of the stages and put themselves in position at the end to try and go for the victory. But even then, did take a long while for them to move their way up and find themselves back into that locked-in mentality. Can be very hard for a driver to get back in and after some struggles throughout the race. But so far for the Massachusetts native, all smooth sailing, other than, of course, that first lap incident there in turn 3. But all is well for right now as the battle for second and potentially the race lead will heat up. Hunter finds himself under fire. Maggio to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith as they touch out of turn 3. And once again, Hunter will dodge a bullet. Maggio fends his way off with Warren Kyle Keith hot on his tail. It'll be a battle for turn 1 between these two race cars. Maggio will hold on for right now. Keith will settle back in third. And Hunter, who was nearly put in a position where he had to play a ton of defense, now can lay back and has some elbow room between these two cars. As Lawson Peel slowly but surely makes his way up forward. It's a 53.545, nearly a full second faster than Stephen Maggio the last time they crossed the yard of bricks. And again, this is going to be for the end of stage 1. With our SK Sim Racing race analysis, we're going to go at least 6 more laps before this stage is complete. And Cedric Hunter in charge for what will be his 4th career stage victory, and first here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We mentioned the dominance at the majority of that Las Vegas Motor Speedway race early in the season. Hunter and his teammate Zachary Hall were the ones to beat over the long run. Hunter going away with both of those stage victories, but then it took him all those months just to get back to a stage finish that's in P1. And with those bonus points plus the victory in hand, that should be at least 10 bonus points given to Hunter as he steps into the round of 12 that begins at Texas in a couple of weeks' time. But Maggio is starting to find his pace. It's taken a little bit and a couple of battles along the way, but the rookie is starting to weave his way forward. That time by nearly leveled with the race leader. Hunter slowed down a bit on the old set of Goodyear Eagles, and with 5 laps to go, this time by in stage 1, it's going to be a brawl for the top spot. Just patiently waiting for the right moment, Maggio is. And down to turn 1, got a great build-up. Catches in within a car length, and he'll try to make a move on the outskirts of turn 2. It's another long back straightaway to get through before he can hop on the brakes and settle into turn 3 and get this car rotated. Bit of a slide from the Hello Kitty Toyota Camry, but here comes Maggio right in the draft, and he's got a chance entering turn 3. And one thing that Maggio has built up over the last several weeks is ultimate tire saving. Even though he's been in a couple battles with Warren Kyle Keith, he has been able to really outshine the rest of this field when the tires start to get a little hot and heavy. And with Maggio, the 2-time race winner this season, a lot of that did come down to tire saving, although Pocono really was a brawl all the way to the finish, including Warren Kyle Keith and several others. But Charlotte last week, very strong run for Maggio over the course of the race, and a lot of that came down to very good speed over 30, 35, 40 laps deep into a run. That's where Maggio was really able to make moves and start to really make an impact inside the top 3. And that's part of what kept him in the race contention for the win late in the going. Bit of a step up there out of turn 2. Hiccup will settle him back, and it's still a car length between the top 2 leaders. And inching forward is that 9 car of Lawson Peel. He's been able to slowly work his way through the field. But again, no surprise for the Mississippi native, who told me a little while back that he loves the fact that we talk about the Jaws theme every time he moves up to the field and is starting to claw his way through. He's very much embraced that mentality. And now up front, here comes Stephen Maggio, back within a car length of the race leader. Not enough of momentum to get to turn 1 to the inside, but it may be a bit of a sweat breaking for Hunter in the first 2 corners. And a great run by Maggio there, setting up for turn 1. Now looking for the crossover at the inside of turn 2. Did lose a bit of ground there and nearly tapped the outside wall. But Hunter weaving down to the bottom, snake trailing to try to avoid the draft. And Maggio still in charge with 2 laps to go in the stage. Well, it won't be the first time these two squabble up for the race lead, especially at the end of a stage. Remember back at Pocono, where Hunter tried to sling his car to the inside off of turn 3. It was not enough to get Maggio phased, and the 97 car was able to walk away with the stage dub. There's the battle for third. Lawson Peel squeezing to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith. That fight will extend to turn 1, and we'll enter the final 2 laps of the opening stage from Speedway, Indiana. Maggio tight out of turn 1. Car hits the outside wall, and there's all the lost time. Hunter still in front, and now pulling away. A big-time mistake for the rookie. Ended up in the dirty air. Car washed up, and there was nowhere to go. Maggio backed up, and he could not escape the hit to the outside wall. And as long as Hunter stays mistake-free, it will be a cruise all the way down to the end of his 4th career stage victory. He's led every single lap tonight. Stepien didn't even get the property of winning one, despite being on pole. And the 45 car will come out of the final corner looking for the white flag in stage 1. It's still going to be a brawl, though. Maggio has been able to catch back up despite that hiccup in the opening corner. And once again, brushes wide. Near kiss to the outside wall. But the red, black, and yellow Branch Chevrolet will stay in tow of the bright pink Toyota Camry that can stand out in a cornfield. He'll be on the inside, looking to block the run from the 97 car as Lawson Peel tries to carry on the draft to turn 3. One more look for Maggio as Hunter comes out of the final corner. He'll look for the momentum. Maggio with one more charge to the inside. And Cedric Hunter off of turn 4 will try and play the defense. Here comes Maggio to the inside. There'll be a drag race all the way down to the Art of Bricks for the end of stage 1. There's trouble, and Steven Maggio, by a hair, walks away with the stage 1 victory. Oh my goodness. 4th stage victory of the season for the young and up-and-coming Maggio as he barely gets by Cedric Hunter right at the line. And the man who's led every single lap will give away one, and it may be the most important as Maggio comes away with the stage victory. And boy, what a finish that was, all the way down to the line. Almost looked like Maggio wouldn't have that much of a run off of the final corner, but he built it up. He built up that momentum very well. And it was all the way the run to the finish line. As we'll get a better look at it here off of turn 4. This is where Maggio makes his move. It was a bit of a mistake by Hunter there off of turn 4. And Maggio just had too much speed to carry. Near half block there for Hunter, trying to send that Chevrolet to the inside. They make door-to-door contact, and Hunter goes up to the wall. And Maggio walks away with a very brutal stage victory here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. What a finish that was. That was... and maybe about a foot or two between those two cars. And Hunter will give away the 1 lap lead. Maggio will carry out the front. He'll pick up the iRacing official pace car. Will be under yellow for just the 2nd time tonight. First under stage finish conditions. So a stellar stage 1 finish for Maggio. He will have the benefit of leading the field onto pit road for the very first time. And remember, because everybody scuffled up in lap number 1 between Stepien, Moreno, and company, obviously no one elected to come down for tires or fuel. It seemed very much too early to make that call. And with 2 30-lap long stages, the second one up and coming, then it's going to be very pivotal to run up your Goodyear Eagles and make sure they will be carried all the way to the finish. And so another photo finish, this time at the stage. We've seen so many good finishes this year. A lot of them not even at the checkered flag. We've seen great races off of pit road. We've seen fantastic finishes to the stage, even though these cars are on the edge of control, down at the edge of that tire wear marker for the Goodyear Eagles. And then, of course, that 1/1000th of a second finish we had at the regular season finale at Daytona. Just how wild of a season it's been. For the first time that this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series is operated under these conditions. You have a lot of guys carrying over from the Sunoco Cup Series, a lot of years of experience under their belt racing with each other, but you look at guys like Maggio, Moreno, even a bit of Cedric Hunter, late entrance into Sunoco Cup history, and then making their first ever effort here in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series with this field. They have really stood out amongst the field, and here comes everyone else down pit road, wholesale service at lap 33. Remember, Maggio came out first. 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles for the field. No classic race off of pit road, although Cedric Hunter going to be in there for a little while. I think he's going to repair what was damaged there on his Toyota Camry with the squabble up with the outside wall. And so the dominator of the stage, but coming up just 1 spot short, Hunter will give away his track position, and he'll step out of the way as Maggio will pick up the race car, or the pace car rather, will be right in front of the rest of the field. So another stage victory for the rookie Maggio. We'll have a chance to talk with the number 97 Chevrolet. Steven, you got a copy with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, Steven. Well, it was a wild stage 1, and you've been on the good end and bad end of many of those stages. Photo finish there with Cedric Hunter as you guys were coming off of turn 4. What was that mentality like trying to recover after that tap of the outside wall in turn 1? And what are the overall thoughts about the way you got that stage victory?
Well, at the end there, that was a fun battle with Cedric. I knew it was a little bit better, so even when I hit the wall, I kind of had a feeling I might get back to him and have one more chance at it. I was just trying to race him like extra clean, because that lap 1 incident with Sempian, and I don't want to cause any more issues or anything. So I was just trying to race him clean, and then I got the run on him, and I was pretty loose, so I just kind of had to take it. I didn't even really have a choice, and I side drafted him pretty good. I don't know if I was going to get it, but then he kind of turned into me, so that was... Hang on, someone's talking. So that was scary to me because I didn't know if I caused him to wreck there or not, but he said it was on him, so I'm happy about that. And yeah, sorry to Stempian. I apologize over the race chat, but I just kind of misjudged going into 3 there and gave him a little bit of a tap. I don't know if that was like the sole reason for the whole wreck, but I feel pretty bad about that.
Well, nonetheless, it was a great stage 1. You guys were on the edge of control. Any quick notes about what that car felt like over the long green flag stretch?
It kind of just builds loose and tight. I mean, it's tight on entry, loose on exit, but it's just because of the wheel spin on exit. So, I mean, the car felt good. I thought I was fast, Lawson ran us down, but that's because I felt like I was a little bit stuck behind Cedric there, or Cedric. I think if I can, not be stuck behind anyone, I can battle him, and yeah, hopefully have a good chance to win here tonight.
Well, Steven, we appreciate the time. We know you got to win at a 2.5-mile uniquely shaped track. Tonight may be that second chance. Thank you for the time. Congrats on the stage 1 victory, and hopefully you get a good run on the restart.
Thank you. Have a good one.
So Steven Maggio, the 2-time winner this season, will bring the field back to green flag action at lap 35. Remember, we go all the way to lap 60 to complete stage 2, and then we'll go the extra 65 laps of distance before we get to the checkered flag at lap 125. For the first time, Lawson Peel will be on the outside of the front row, but by now, if you've watched this series long enough, you know that this seems to be the canon event for the Mississippi driver. Start at the back, don't qualify, run up at the front, and then make your mark for the second and third stage to go at it for the victory. Last time we saw him take the dub, of course, at Daytona with that very stellar 1/1000th of a second finish between himself and Warren Kyle Keith spinning to the line. And he will have to react here as the young Maggio will take the field out of turn 4. We'll get our first proper green flag restart since the opening lap crash earlier on tonight. So Maggio through the restart zone. You see those 2 orange cones. That's where the field can go. Green flag from the Brickyard. Good job by Maggio to move up to the front. Warren Kyle Keith gets the launch into turn 1 to fight for second. And Keith, very tight out of the opening corner, had to step out of the gas pedal and gives Lawson Peel some more buffer to work with. It'll be the battle for the lead at the exit of turn 2, while all the way at the back, Richard Swavely trying to fend off Ross Harlow in the battle for P9. And back behind them, there's Zachary Hall. Look to the inside. A Category 5 Esports Toyota Camry making a move underneath. And this is really the segment of the race where those drivers involved in the opening lap crash can try and put themselves back in the spotlight. Steven Stempien up to a race-high 4th after dropping out of the pole position there on the opening lap and falling through nearly to 3rd, and then that's where the contact happened there on the outside of 3 wide. And Stempien has really picked up the pace. The Massachusetts native is starting to pick up ground on the 78 Toyota Camry. That's where he can start to make his decided move there, possibly out of turn number 2. And here he goes. Just a classic look at what you have to do here at Indy with these next-gen cars, and obviously knowing that for the context of the rest of the season, this car may handle very differently. That was a big point that was emphasized by the admin team, a lot of the driver base of the series. They were thinking, what is this real update for the next-gen car going to look and feel like? How is it going to handle in the middle of traffic? How is it going to be drafting-wise? And what's going to be toned down? What's going to be toned up? What is going to be changed overall? And how differently do you have to drive the car as a result? We've seen a lot of the mile-and-a-half tracks, and a lot of it exemplified here at Indianapolis. The dirty air effect, number 1, but the drafting effect secondarily. You can see a lot of the outside charges and freight train moves if you're a driver on the inside. If you can get enough cars with you on the outside lane, you can start to really make moves. And the guy on the inside just left for dust, even though they may have the better handling car in the middle of the corner. But as we get a look with Stempien here, this is typical dirty air fashion. Just trying to whoa up the race car, trying to get it rotating through the corner and get right back into the throttle. You can easily get that aero wash. A lot of what we saw at Charlotte last Sunday, where Ethan Fonseca-Moreno played defense by sliding to the inside, lunging to the middle of the corner, and then getting that car rotated off the air from the outside wall. And from there, just deals the aero wash to the drivers behind, and it just makes it much harder for them to get a good run out of turn 4. Speaking of good runs out of turn 4, here comes Lawson Peel. Inside look for the race lead. And first proper change of the lead since that final lap of stage 1. But Maggio won't play nice. He'll pinch the Mississippi native to the inside. And it's all on that third car of Keith to figure out who's he going to help. Peel still at the bottom. And here comes Keith. Sling to the inside. 3 wide for the top spot, and there's contact. Peel sends the 78 up into the outside wall. And Keith is not going to be happy about that. Right side damage in turn 3. And Peel tried to back up the corner, make a move, and now even more contact. Muscarella sends Keith to the outside wall. Not playing nicely at the exit of turn 4. In a drama-filled sequence, Keith goes from 2nd all the way back to 10th. And here comes Stempien. Look to the inside. And an absolute drive by Steven Maggio to stay up in the front. As Peel made the move to the inside of the racetrack, it looked like that would have been the clear and cut battle for the race lead. Keith decided he wanted to look at the inside 3 wide, and almost appeared that Peel would have backed up to get out of middle 3, and then all of a sudden arced underneath and caught a piece of that 78 car as he was just trailing by. The nose and the rear bumper were starting to swap around, and all of a sudden Peel made that slight contact as everybody nearly hits the wall out of turn 4. Again, something I mentioned in that KBRN onboard lap was the way this car really steps under you, and whether the rear tires spin or whether that right front starts to wash up, both of them can result in near catastrophe outside of that final corner. And we see a lot of that out of turn 2 as well. Wall comes up quick. It's a straightaway after, so you want to pin down as much of the throttle as possible. A lot of guys seem to get overeager, and a lot of times they end up scrapping that outside safer barrier. Bit of that transition there between where that safer barrier kind of kicks out and where that overall concrete surface, the concrete barrier kind of is there on the back straightaway. And there is no safer barrier out there, so it's kind of that change in the ground and how much space you really have in the corner. As Peel will recoup, he'll be back in 3rd. Steven Stempien in a race-high 2nd since that opening lap crash. And now he'll have a chance at capturing the race lead for the first time since his pole position captured on lap number 1. And from there, single file, Zachary Hall. We mentioned the other end of that opening lap crash with the 23 car getting a bit of front end damage. That freaky fast Toyota Camry is back inside the top 5. The only Toyota inside the top 7. You go all the way back to what is the 14th place car, where Warren Kyle Keith is still dealing with the effects of that aftermath contact with Lawson Peel. He is the only other Toyota in the midst of the top 15 that is not named Cedric Hunter, who is up in 15th as well. Great run in turn 3 by Hall. He'll fling his car to the inside, and it's all on Peel to play a bit of defense, as we saw Peel get a great run through the final end of stage 1. Longest green flag run of the night. Drivers had to really deal with those ill-handling race cars, and for Peel, for most of it, was able to survive, caught up to the top 3, and just about made his name known in the battle for the stage 1 victory, but just could not get there to Hunter or to Maggio in enough time. Give him maybe 10 to 15 laps, Peel would have very much been there, maybe 3 wide for the lead, but now has to back out in 4th. We'll let Hall go through, and it's single file all the way back to the 48 car of Alex Muscarella. Top 9 separated by just a second and a half as they come out of turn 2. As there's Moreno looking to the inside of Ross Harlow, and started this race inside the top 6. But of course, that contact with Steven Stepien ricocheting off the outside wall was more than enough to take Moreno for a whirl. Went for the spin at the pit road access road to the inside of the racetrack. And Moreno will back out here in the fight for 7th place, as Muscarella will tee into the inside. Stepien nearly had a look at the race leader Maggio as they were coming down to turn 1. Very solid buildup of momentum for the Massachusetts native, and here's the onboard look for the race leader. Down to the final 17 of this second stage from the Brickyard. And there's Stepien. Look at how much ground he gains with the draft off turn 2. It's going to be nearly the same, maybe a bit better off of the final corner, as long as no mistakes come out of either of these 2 cars. But remember, we talked about the way that Maggio is able to save his Goodyear Eagles for the long run. Part of that may just be a bit of tire saving, even though he's in clean air, making use of the arcing through the corners that he has without having to deal with all of that aero wash behind him. And for Steven Stepien, maybe a bit more aggressive at trying to put himself in clean air for the first time since we started the race. And even then, outside of turns 1 and 2, that's when Stepien had to be back in dirty air as Cedric Hunter took over the race lead. So it really hasn't been a race of settling into open ground for the 88 car. And Stepien trying to recover after a 12th place finish to the Charlotte Motor Speedway race that ended up putting him inside the top 12. And now a bump into turn 3, trying to force Maggio up the 9.2 degrees of banking. It's not going to work. It'll send Maggio further up the road. And through turn 4, this could be where that silver and black Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet could start to strike forward and spearhead this effort for the race lead. Zachary Hall back in 3rd, so there still could be even more fights for the top spot as we move forward. It'll be about 15 laps to go before the end of stage 2 here from Indy. And to just piggyback off of the momentum that Steven Stepien is trying to muster off of, you know, that 12th place finish wasn't exactly the greatest for the league owner. And as he goes into tonight's race, he is just about, give or take, 15 points away from that cut line spot where Kip easily holds on to the first spot out. As here comes Stepien, battle to the inside, had a solid charge down the back straightaway. Maggio will play fiddle through the outside lane. It's going to work for a moment, but Stepien will try and force it down to turn 4. He'll have the run. Maggio playing the defense. Zachary Hall back in 3rd, and this will according the entire group all the way back to turn 1. And there's a look at it. 4 cars under 0.2 of a second. Look at the push from Peel down to Hall to the inside. As Hall will make the move, Maggio plays the outside charge, and thankfully it will work out for the Branch Chevrolet. Stays up in front as they come down to turn 2. And once again, it is a battle for the ages at the front of this field, as Stepien will lead his first several laps of the race. Here comes Zachary Hall again. Pin his nose to the inside. This is really where Maggio has to be very careful with his set of Goodyear Eagles. Very easily you can wear them down, trying to stave off the rest of the competition and hold them back. And it could be very easy to make a mistake and find yourself right into that outside wall. Again, Indianapolis is a very low-banked speedway as Peel looks to the inside. It'll be 3 abreast as they come to turn 1. And Hall backs out, and now Peel slides into Maggio. Goes for the spill nearly in turn 1, and he saves it. What a save by the 5-time winner, and now everyone is scrambled up to the top 5. And they're 3 wide further back. Ross Harlow, Moreno, and Justin Erb trying to fend for themselves at the exit of turn 2. And for Lawson Peel, a nightmare corner in turn 1 as Harlow dives to the bottom. Could have nearly been a scare for Peel there, and that was nearly reminiscent of that Warren Kyle Keith incident that put the Florida native all the way back in position 17. As we'll come down to the final 13 laps in the second stage of this race. You know, we've had it in mind just how much of a dash the second stage is compared to the first. As you start at the race lap 1, you go all the way down to lap 30 in this case. But usually in between stages is where you find that intermission, those caution laps, 3 to 4 laps sometimes. They could be a little less, could be a little more, depending on the situation, as Peel fights a loose race car in turn 2. And now the nightmare continues for the 5-time winner. There's Ross and Stephen Harlow, teammates at DTH. They'll work together on the high side, and they'll make that pass into turn 3. Things are getting really dramatic for Peel with a car that seemingly is handling worse. And Harlow washed up way high in turn 3, gives the open door for Peel to make the move back down to the inside. And so he will stabilize here just inside of the top 6. We talked about that run to stage 2. Of course, with those ticked off caution laps that you get in between stages 1 and 2. That means you get less distance to cover, less laps to run in the midway portion of the race. And then through stage 3, that's where obviously you get a bit of a shorter stage, but it's still a longer run to the finish line. And what a power outside move by Peel to make a slight charge to the outside in P4. Stephen Harlow backs out, and they'll play nice at least for now. Down to the back straightaway with Stempien up in front by at least a car length. Even then, this battle will continue to try and work its way through. Maggio washes up high, caught a bit of that dirty air. Now here comes Zachary Hall, look to the inside. And this battle for second, turn 4. Onboard look from Zachary Hall. Holds off Stephen Maggio for now. And eyes down the final 10 laps of this second stage. And although Zachary Hall has been so consistently strong throughout this season, he still has yet to find a stage victory in his hands. And that's why going into these playoffs, him and Stephen Harlow, who have been 2 of the better drivers over the course of the season, they haven't been able to win a race. They haven't won a stage. Therefore, no bonus points. They were flat at 1,000 points total, leveled off with everybody 12 on back, including those below the cut line exiting Daytona. And so Hall would love nothing more than a good finish tonight, possibly a win that advances him right into the next round at Texas, and possibly some bonus points that'll help him with his buffer. And got real close to the race leader in Steven Stempien as they came out of turn 4. Hall with a loose race car, Maggio getting up tight. And then once again, it's a 3-car battle for the race lead inside the final 9 of this second stage. Seemingly, these guys cannot get away from each other right now. It appears no matter how long of a run you have, how long you wear out these Goodyear Eagles, you will still find some good racing at the front. And that has been very clear throughout the entirety of this opening Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, from Pocono to Nashville to a lot of the other tracks on this schedule where it's very difficult to drive still in and still out. We continue to have great fights for the race lead, a lot of them near photo finishes. And right here is where we have another fight for the top spot. Maggio, the stage 1 winner, hanging back in 3rd. Look at that gap all the way back to Lawson Peel from 4th place. It's about a 1.5 seconds covering those 2 cars. And Hall once again sends it far into turn 1, trying to look for the entryway off of turn 2. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, going to be all about passing down the straightaways. What a save by Zachary Hall. Kept his Toyota planted. Stephen Maggio will have the run. And only bad part is 8 laps to go in stage 2, and Hall will have to reinvigorate. Kind of what happened to Maggio there at the late end of stage 1. were planning the move on Cedric Hunter. Caught the outside wall and then backed off by at least a tenth or two, but he had the faster race car over the course of the run and pushed as hard as possible. And just like that, back within a tenth of a second and back within closing distance is that Category 5 Esports Toyota Camry. May sling to the inside in turn 1, backs out before they get to the corner, and it's a wonderful look for Steven Stepien as they come through to turn 2. And a great run off the second corner. Stepien will be able to fend off the second and third place cars, at least for now. As the fight for 10th, not necessarily a crucial one. So far, Eric Schaefer is the man holding on to that last spot for that 1 point that will help him out. Schaefer struggling a bit through the first round of the playoffs at Charlotte. And then, of course, tonight in Indianapolis, hasn't been able to stand out that much as Stepien wiggles loose in turn 4. Here comes Hall. Fight to the inside. Side draft off of turn 4. Maggio will have a chance to send it down low, but he won't do it. Zachary Hall, new race leader from the Brickyard. Well, the real question is, how long will it last? As we've seen constant tussles for the top spot, and it's an increasingly loose condition for Zachary Hall off of turn 2. Meanwhile, there's Lawson Peels separated from the pack in his own galaxy back and forth. And it's Stepien and Maggio. Whether they help each other or not, that's the question entering the final 5 of the second stage. Again, it's a driver who has never won a race nor a stage, with 2 drivers that have picked up a win and a stage win at least in 2025. Stepien with the most stage victories of them all. Counting coming into this second race of the playoffs, 6 career stage victories, a ton of bonus points, and a lot of momentum to work with. But this time by Hall extends his gap 0.3 of a second, and inching closer is the 9 car of Lawson Peel. And every single time we talk about a charging driver, we're going to talk about this man right here. And it's now at least 3 car lengths separating the Napa Auto Care Chevrolet from the 97 machine of Steven Maggio right in front. And it's going to be painstakingly hard to get back up through this field, cut through 3 cars in the span of maybe 4.5 laps. Again, the stage 2 finish comes at the end of lap 60, so about the start of lap 61. And Lawson just continues to write his script in the book, similar to all of the others before him. And he's down within 0.3 of a second. We'll keep an eye on that potential battle for third. And so far, no clear response from Stepien yet to Zachary Hall. Steven Maggio has kept his place in third, but the stabilized situation for the 97 may be in jeopardy as Lawson will try and figure out a way to stumble these drivers out of the way. And then back in 5th, Stephen Harlow, who crashed out of last week's race at Charlotte, desperately needs a solid stage finish tonight, and this could be very well the answer to the prayer for the 11 machine. He'll hang back. Caution flag comes out, though, right before the cusp of stage 2, and I believe Eric Schaefer might have been involved in it. The Virginia native right on the 10th spot as soon as we were coming down to the end of the stage, and indeed it is trouble for the 3 car. Here's a look at the replay. Cedric Hunter, who gave up all his track position to fix some damage on the right side of his Camry off of turn 2. This is where Schaefer breaks loose, catches Hunter. Oh, and it's a heavy lick to the inside of the racetrack for Schaefer. And race control will try and levy out this decision, whether this will be the end of stage 1 or not. And here's the onboard look from Schaefer. Car just carried loose. And there was nowhere to go from there on out. Extra help from the 45 of Hunter. And Schaefer will be on pit road, towed his car to the pit lane, and he will be a lap down and counting. So Eric Schaefer may just be in a clawing out situation come Watkins Glen next Sunday, as the field will catch the iRacing official pace car for the 2nd time tonight under on-track yellow conditions. And now it's up to figure out whether we're going to end up with a 2-lap dash, maybe less than that, coming to the end of the second stage, or whether that will be it for the drivers at the front. And if that is so, that is Zachary Hall's first career stage victory, but all is well that ends well. We'll have to find out how that all ends as the field will come out of the final corner and the entire group will take their way down to pit road. It seems like no opposite calls, no different decisions. Everyone is in this time through at lap 57. Well, for right now, not necessarily two tire call territory. We've seen that at least late in the final stage. Some of that at Charlotte, some of that at Nashville. And it's helped certain drivers get to the front and to victory lane. But for right now, it seems like 4 fresh tires and some fuel along the way. There's Ross Harlow overshooting his stall as he had to back it up and get it right to the Jackman, who ends up on the right side of the race car. Left side's up for the 23 car of Zachary Hall. Great pit stop for Stephen Harlow, but an even better one for the race leader. Stephen Harlow is going to end up in the top 3. Great pit stop for the 11 car, and Zachary Hall will lead them off of pit road with Lawson Peel in tow. And how about Ethan Fonseca Moreno? Great pit stop, 14.7, and the California native will step up into the top 5 for the first time since the beginning of this race. It has been a long while at the front for Moreno, and he's thankfully seeing a reunion with it as they will pick up the pace car and we'll get things back and sorted here. But gonna wait for official confirmation as to whether that is the eventual end of the stage or whether we will have a little bit of time to get at least a run to the finish line in. But I believe, given the circumstance behind the pace car, we should be in for a stage conclusion here. And that means 12 different stage winners. The newest, Zachary Hall, in his number 23 Toyota Camry. And that means a Category 5 Esports. 2 out of the 3 cars now with at least 1 stage win in 2025. Took 16 races for Hall to finally get his first. But for right now, that will be it. There's Chris Progar, who will get his wave around here from the iRacing official pace car. He is 6 laps down, so something disastrously wrong happened to the 7 car earlier on in this race, and the Wisconsin native will try and get as many points as possible, at least hoping for a bit more attrition here in this 24 car field, as he and Eric Schaefer are the only cars a lap down or more. Eric Schaefer still on pit road. Remember, he had to tow that race car. That is at least a minute and a half worth of time that's spent getting his car back to the pit lane. And then, of course, the extra time needed to fully repair that race car. Potentially suspension damage there. And I think we're actually going to have either a 1-lap dash to the end of Stage 2 or just a early start to Stage 3. Remember, in our SK Sim Racing race analysis, we go down to lap 60 until the end of Stage 2. We'll go the rest of the way, 65 laps to the 125-lap marker. And, of course, that checkered flag here from the Brickyard. And so I guess we'll figure out how it all goes. Just a bit of trial and error here on the KBueno Racing Network. A lot of times we have Francisco mention it to us, whether it is a confirmed stage finish or not. But since it's solo dolo here at the broadcast booth here at Indianapolis, it's a little bit lonely, first of all. But secondarily, we kind of don't have that word from Race Control officially. And we can't listen in on the radio communications from Race Control. So it looks like it's all up in the air. We'll figure it out as we move along. Zachary Hall is the race leader. Lawson Peel back in second outside in row number 1. Stephen Harlow race high third, with Moreno a race high fourth since the opening lap incident off of this corner here, turn 3. Justin Erb will pick up the rest of the top 5. There's Brandon Banks, Steven Stempian, Richard Swavely, Kip Easley, and Ross Harlow will line out the rest of the top 10. And pretty slow stop there for the 88 car of Stempian, a 17.2 second ditch into his pit stall. And with that extra couple of seconds spent, it means he will lose out the track position, and the driver who led a couple of laps earlier on tonight will have to get his way back to the front. So it's either the beginning of Stage 3 or the ending of Stage 2 on a 1-lap dash. We'll figure it all out. Pace car down to the inside of pit road. Zachary Hall and Lawson Peel will take the field through the Geico restart zone. Early jump by the Toyota Camry. Great start from Peel as they chase back to the first corner. Hall with a good run out of turn 1. Peel will try the crossover as they come to the second corner. Harlow with that push to the 23 car. Ends up settled in third in the first battle for fourth. Erb and Moreno out of the final corner. To the back straightaway. Here comes Peel, off the draft, off the inside. The Napa Auto Care Chevrolet dives to the bottom for the lead. Will this be a dash to the finish in stage 2 or the kickoff of stage 3? Only time will tell. Peel carries the lead out of turn 4. Zachary Hall follows suit. The rest of the field single file as they charge for the Art of Bricks. And Lawson Peel, for the first time in a little while, and maybe the first time properly, comfortably tonight, will be at the front of this field. And I believe, given race control's lack of a caution throw, we will indeed kick off the final stage. So a bit of an early jump for the rest of this field on the longest run of the night. And comfortably, it's Lawson Peel at the head of this field, followed by Hall, Harlow, Erb, and Banks, with Moreno right in front for the top 6. And here's our Charlie Byer photography onboard camera with Peel. Hall down to the bottom. He'll point his car, plant to the inside, and fire through turn 3. The 23 car still can't find an edge as they come to the short chute. And there's the pass. Hall back to the race lead here from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A quick-witted decision for Lawson Peel to step out back. As here comes Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Charge to the inside, negated there to turn 1. And much like the beginning of our several restarts throughout this race, whether it be off of the stages or not, we have seen the top 7 or so accordion together. A lot of them very much in contention with each other. You're looking at the top 7, all separated under a blanket by 7 car lengths. That's 7/10 of a second worth of race distance. And then you go all the way back to 9th place, maybe even 10th. Ross Harlow with the 2nd and 4/10 that separate those drivers as Stepien dives down to the bottom, planting on the bottom end of the speedway here, turn 4. And Brandon Banks, quite quiet night for the PulseCars.com Chevrolet as he stepped into tonight in a very interesting scenario for the playoffs. 6th place in standings with 1,045 points, leveled with Steven Stepien going into tonight's event. And there loses 2 spots in the span of a quarter and a half as Richard Swavely backs out and doesn't exactly pinpoint his Toyota Camry to the inside of that Kyle Larson-inspired paint scheme. But nonetheless, Brandon Banks continues to run a clean race. And for the most part, that seems to be all that matters in a playoff system that rewards good finishes and, of course, race victories. As here's the Red Bull Chevrolet dive to the bottom alley in turn number 3. And right onto Georgetown Road as they come out of turn 4. That's where Moreno will have 3rd place. Fantastic run so far for Ethan Fonseca Moreno as we'll get a look on board with Stephen Harlow. Remember that 20th place finish that really eludes him now going into tonight, and one that he really wants to piggyback off of and get a better finish after what was his possible worst finish of the year had it not been for 22nd a couple weeks earlier on in the regular season. But again, last top 10 came at Illinois back in race number, what was that, 8 or 9 of the season. And a great look from Harlow as he challenges through. Shows you the level of difficulty in the middle of traffic, and a similar look from what we got with Steven Stepien earlier on in this race here. That 3rd or 4th car in line running single file, and it's all about trying to get as much of the acceleration off the corner as possible. These are pretty long straightaways here at Indianapolis, and even off of these short chutes, you want to make sure you set up nicely for the next corner that follows. A lot of times hitting the brakes there off of the corner entering turn 1 or turn 3, and then just trying to kind of feather the throttle a little bit as you come out of turn 4. As there's Moreno, good run off of turn 2, leveled it out to the straightaway in the 87 car, making the inside look. And Peel in that secondary lane. It's very hard to keep that car rotated through that corner. We saw Maggio step up into the outside wall as a result of how tight that car got from underneath him. A lot of this plays with the underbody of the race car, and there's a bit of contact. Stephen Harlow playing with disaster in the side draft effort on the 9 car. He'll stay back in line, but that could have easily been Peel getting sent to the inside wall off of turn 4, and they get out of the way for what could have been another caution of the race. So for right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9th. All under a blanket at a 2nd and 2/10, and then the secondary pack led by the 16 car of Ross Harlow. And that 16 machine, Alex Muscarella back in the 11th spot, really needs a pick-me-up after Charlotte Motor Speedway. Early exit that tonight puts him very much on the outskirts of the group. 7 points beneath that cut line, with Kip easily the first man out by 2 points, although he's won a couple of stages tonight, or over the course of the season rather. And some solid finishes over 2025. He'll hang back for now, as up in the front, Moreno has a mission, that mission to get to the lead. And for right now, it's not fruitful. He'll stay back in line as Zachary Hall leads us through lap number 67 here from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A lot more to cover here from the Brickyard, but for right now, it is 67 laps complete. Zachary Hall, the race leader, will be right back for more coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Back live from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway as Ethan Fonseca Moreno, the new race leader, after 70 completed laps and 55 laps to go. You saw Moreno on the side-by-side camera angle on the left side of your screen make the move to the bottom of pole. It was a relatively textbook pass for the California native, and as they continue to run green here from the Brickyard in Indiana, it has been a lot of fun. We've seen a couple of cautions here and there, our most recent involving the playoff driver of Eric Schaefer. Update on him, he is 6 laps down and in dead last, 24th for the Hampton, Virginia native, who coming into this race was on the bubble, only 2 points free of that cut line spot in 13th. As the first man out, Kip easily may have the edge and will start to jump the 3 car little by little over the course of this race. Chris Progar also facing some troubles. He entered tonight 9th in the playoff charge, only about 9 points clear of that fellow cut line back in 12th. And so far, as we enter the cutoff race next weekend at the virtual Watkins Glen International Circuit, Progar has to fight through the trenches. He is also 6 laps down in 23rd place. So right now, it's Moreno, Hall, Peel, Harlow, and Erb, your current running top 5. And it's the first laps led for the California native of Moreno, who, after capturing 4 poles this season, still has yet to capture a drop in the Hammah Cup Series victory. His best shot coming last week at Charlotte, led a bulk of the race and ended up in a position to win. Just unfortunately did not come his way, and he ended up 9th after those 205 laps. A lot of that came down to the overtime attempts, where Cedric Hunter on the fresh set of Goodyear Eagles was able to move up to the front and ended up winning that race. And it was 99 laps led for Moreno last week at the 1.5 miles in Concord, North Carolina. So as he leads his first couple here tonight from Indy, it should be a sign to come, hopefully, that Moreno can try and continue the momentum for KBueno Racing, in which both of his other teammates have been able to win at least one race this season. Remember, back in the debut for this team with Jaden Porter dominating the field at Dover, a race in which Moreno had won the pole at and then crashed later on. And then, of course, those 2 race victories for Stephen Maggio, who right now is lodged back inside the top 7 as he's fighting with the likes of Steven Stepien and Richard Swavely for position. Here comes Zachary Hall. Quick look to the inside and quick work of the 87 Chevrolet, the Toyota, back up to the front. It has been a coming-to-life moment for Zachary Hall so far this evening after his teammate Cedric Hunter dominated a bulk of this first stage, led every lap but the final one, coming to the end of the stage finish. And ever since then, Zachary Hall credited with the Stage 2 victory. And his first career stage victory may parlay into his first career dub, as long as he's able to hold on. But through one of our longest green flag runs of the night, through which we've seen a couple between the end of stage 1, of course, a bulk of the second stage, and what we're seeing tonight, 15 laps deep for most of this field, we may indeed see some green flag pit stops before this is all said and done. And the driver you can never count out for a race at Indy that comes down to strategy is this man that just took second, the 5-time winner and 3-time defending Sunoco Cup Series champion, Lawson Peel. He has been really able to settle out nicely in long green flag strategies, and rarely ever do you see Peel on the back end of luck. He's been usually at the good end of things, and so far the 9 car is going to try and catch up. He's got about half a second to pick up before he can make it a proper battle for the P1 spot as they come around for laps 75 and 50 official laps to go here from the 2.5 miler. So for Peel, in a track that really suits his driving style, one where he is very disciplined at, him and Zachary Hall were coming into this as basically favorites to win this event. Cedric Hunter told us after the win last week at Charlotte that Indianapolis, he sees his teammate Zachary Hall as the odds-on favorite to win. And even then, Hall couldn't really call a shot, didn't want to be overconfident and boastful in his approach going into this race. But he did tell us last week after the top 3 finish at Charlotte that he is eyeing down this racetrack, and this is a place that he really does enjoy driving at. So between these two, that's what you're seeing right now. Class of the field as they've pulled away from the second pack that is starting to accordion together, beginning with that 87 machine of Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Right behind him, Stephen Harlow. That's a drop in the Hammah team Chevrolet. And then TOW Racing having a very solid run with the 20 car of Justin Erb, who over the course of this season, we've seen plenty of shining moments. Charlotte really wasn't one of them. 16th place after that restart scuffle that got himself involved with Hunter and the spinning Richard Swavely there near the outside wall in the quad oval. And we haven't seen a top 10 finish from Erb since May 11th. That was back at Gateway, which was the side of the last top 10 for the car right in front of him in Stephen Harlow. And it was a 3rd place finish for the Home Depot Chevrolet. As right behind, battle for 6th place, Maggio and Stepien in turn 2. So they'll run single file, no more pressure for the Branch Chevrolet. We're told this car was feeling good, a bit of oversteer and understeer at the same time. It's kind of that push oversteer effect that really gets difficult to deal with as a driver behind the wheel, and a fantastic arc through turn 4 We'll get that bright red Chevrolet to the inside of that silver Bullet Justin Erb car as they come back to turn 1. But like I was saying about push oversteer, it is a very interesting effect that happens behind the wheel of a race car where you enter the corner, the car doesn't want to turn, and then as soon as you get the throttle kicked back in, you exit the banking, and then that's where the rear tires light up, and then you have a car that's basically on the near edge of spinning around. And we've seen that a ton here at Indy between, Lawson Peel running in the midst of traffic, Steven Maggio, Zachary Hall, a bit of those drivers pushing tight in the middle of the corner, and then it's when they snap loose, when they have so much steering input into the race car and a lot of throttle in the transition through this 9.2 degrees of banking here at Indianapolis. And so with Stephen Harlow, he will try and watch out for this Branch Chevrolet that's right behind him. But a car that's handling much better now over the early portions of this run as the guys got the fresh Goodyear Eagles at the end of that second stage. And, we mentioned that intermission period that usually happens between stages where you kind of shave off a couple of laps because you have to gather up the field under caution flag conditions. You have to deal with pit stops between the lead lap cars and the cars that are a lap down or more. Not the case, though, with this early ending stage 2. We get everyone a chance to start the stage with a bit more time on their hands, and they cross the line for lap 60, basically as that third stage was coming to a beginning. So it is a full-on proper strategy fest, just as long as this race continues to stay green. And now pulling into the stratosphere of his own league, Zachary Hall about a second up the road. Lawson Peel having to settle back in second. And no real charge from behind. It's nearly another full second before you catch up to Ethan Fonseca Moreno. And even then, it's maybe half a second separating Harlow and Moreno there for third place. And the closest battle on the racetrack may just be inside the top 12. That's where the other end of the Category 5 Esports camp is sitting right now. Stage 1, second place finisher, Cedric Hunter, and Charlotte Motor Speedway winner, obviously told us last week that the approach really does change. He's going to want a lot more race wins, of course. So that is the main mindset of a race car driver. If you win one, you're going to want more, of course. But for Hunter, no real pressure, no real back against the wall moment at all for car number 45. And entering this race, can relax, can watch, can try to help his teammate win some races and point himself or win his way into the next round. And just give themselves a better shot at the Ultimate Championship at Homestead in Miami. He's in a 3-car train. Make it 4 cars possibly if you want to count that silver and black Lowe's Chevrolet of Alexander Muscarella. And right up the road, Ross Harlow back in 11th. Warren Kyle Keith sitting back in 10th. After that scuffle with Lawson Peel entering turn 3, hasn't really been a proper comeback for the Harlow driver. But for right now, wrestling this car, trying to make sure it is very good on the handling side of things as they come out of turn 2. Fantastic arc for the 45 car. Dive to the inside. It's Hunter for 11th. And a quick move by Hunter. No real problem for Ross Harlow to step out of the way and make sure that he doesn't make sure this fight continues on and lets Alex Muscarella Kip easily emerge into the foreground. Of course, Muscarella and Harlow teammates at the Droppin the Hammah team, one of the bigger teams of this series. That includes the likes of KBueno Racing and, of course, the conglomerate that usually is Drinking Bros Racing and a lot of their racing leagues. That includes 4Wide, that includes this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. You're going to see a lot of those drivers of DBR in the field. And not many of them making inroads other than, of course, Brandon Banks and the driver sitting in P2 of Lawson Peel here at the Brickyard. Stubble up there by the Warren Kyle Keith car. Here comes Harlow and Muscarella. Bit of drafting help down the straightaway. And so they'll help the 16 car move up into 12th place, rather 11th as they come into turn 3 with Keith having to play a bit of defense. We've seen a lot of good qualifying efforts for the St. Augustine, Florida native. A lot of those have transpired into either bad luck second halves or really good races to just end up with solid finishes and good points. And it's helped Warren Kyle Keith put himself in position to win races. He is a one-time stage winner from earlier on this season. But of course, the bad luck has stricken here at Indianapolis with that contact with Lawson Peel putting him into the wall, and I don't think this car has handled the same ever since. He's been trapped in the middle of traffic. Right front tire hasn't been happy with him, and so far the car hasn't been responding well to his inputs. He may be under fire from 13th place, and that's the 14th place car right behind the 3 Cheese Chevrolet of Kip Easley. And this will be fascinating with 43 laps to go. The way that the field decides to come down pit road, because there is, of course, enough time on the 100% fuel tank that these drivers have here in the series to go nearly to the end of this race. They will need to make at least one more pit stop before it's all said and done, given the fact that we've seen that trend happen with every other third stage in the series so far. But it's going to be more about when you come down pit road versus if you come down pit road. It's going to be a matter of how close do you want to cut it between coming down and having to recycle through the field in order to put yourself in a position to win. That is barring any yellow flags at the end of the race, but let's say this one goes all the way to the end, green and caution free. You're looking at this marker, a turning point here, 42 laps to go, where you can tell yourself, am I willing to pit earlier than the rest of the field, knowing that I could cycle out first and knowing that there will be limited time left in the event? But I think here, 42 laps to go, maybe a bit too outstretched. I'm not sure if drivers are thinking about pit road right now. Maybe when it's 35, 30 laps to go, that's when things will start to get a little more dicey in terms of who comes in and who decides to stay out with an attempt to hopefully gain track position if a yellow flag does fly. But for right now, clean and green, as Maggio has been able to take over third. We saw him deep in the middle of this top 5, top 6 battle, and he was as far as 7th place earlier on in this green flag run. But we noted the way he tire saves. It's worked out in most of the other races this season, and the same goes here from Indy, as he has stepped up to another placement in third. And this is just Maggio's 6th career start in this series after making his debut in late April at Pocono. That's when he won the race. And following in the trend of teammates at BBR who have been able to win in their debut, Jaden Porter, of course, showed up at Dover, dominated. We saw him make a couple more starts, but ever since hasn't been able to make these Sunday night races. But Maggio and Moreno have held the torch for this KBueno Racing team. And so far in Maggio's short career, of course, those 2 victories coming back-to-back at Pocono and then Nashville, and hasn't had a finish outside of the top 10. His worst finish, 9th, coming at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, and one that he very well ran up front for most of the outing, and then had a bit of beef there with Warren Kyle Keith midway through the race. And so far, Maggio poised up for another solid finish, maybe even a race win, as long as he's able to move up and catch up eventually to Lawson Peel and Zachary Hall. But the gap between Maggio and the race leader sitting at a solid 2.8 seconds. This is the most separation that we've seen from the field so far tonight, as the tire attrition has mostly kicked in. How about the auction up for 4th place on the racetrack? Turn 1. Stephen Harlow, Project Hopner Chevrolet, great run off of turn 4 the last time by, and was able to make up a ton of ground on Moreno's Red Bull Chevrolet. And Harlow coming into tonight's race in a pretty decent position right now, noting his performance this evening and the stage points that he's been able to pick up alongside the struggles from both Eric Schaefer and Chris Progars. He comes down low to the inside, washed up, didn't have enough of the rotation on the bottom end of the speedway, and it forces Moreno high. It brings the door open, and Justin Erb says, thank you very much, I'll move on the inside. But like we mentioned with the Project Hopner Chevrolet, Harlow came into this race 3 points shy of the cut line, and it should be brighter skies for Harlow at the exit of this race, as long as he's able to keep this momentous run going. But I guess nearly threw away that race there in turn 3. But he'll stay back in this line of 3 cars that has a decent gap to the 7th place machine. It's about a 2nd and 2/10 of worth with Steven Stepien, who was able to get by Richard Swavely and the 5 car of Brandon Banks. We mentioned this storyline a little earlier on in this season, but if you take a closer look at this 11 car tonight, he is bearing the Project Hopner Chevrolet colors, and one that he debuted with earlier on this season that represents Project Hopner, which is a special cause, a special company that is supposed to give awareness to teen suicide and give outlets to teens to find hope if they are ever in a mental health struggle. And Project Hopener was based in Harlow's hometown of Hinesburg, Vermont. And it's a special tribute to one of the owners of the Project Hopener organization. It's Sue Hopener, who passed away lately. And Harlow told us at the time that she was one of the greatest examples of all the great things love and compassion can do. It takes a lot of compassion and a lot of kindness in your heart to open up an organization that is striving to give help to teens that are in a very struggle-minded area and are struggling with their mental health. You know, I've struggled with mental health before, and it's a tough battle to get through. So, of course, our awareness on Stephen Harlow's machine tonight is he raises awareness for Project Hopener, because there is hope no matter how you see it. So Stephen recovering from that bit of a slide as there's trouble right at the back of the field. That is playoff driver Richard Swavely spun around and ricocheted at the exit of turn 4. Yellow flag flies with just about 36 laps to go. Saw Swavely ping pong off of the 5 cars. They came out of turn 4, and he is stranded on the front straightaway trying to find a way out. And here's how it all happened to bring our latest caution of the race to fruition. A 3-car fight. It's that gray and red number 32 to the inside. And the PaulsCars.com Chevrolet of Brandon Banks. I think there was contact. Yeah, right about there. I think Swavely backed up, anticipating that Banks would be there on the outside. Cedric Hunter made the move down low. Didn't expect to see that 32 car swivel down to the bottom. And as Swavely had to watch out in his rearview mirror, all of a sudden he had to deal with a saving race car that ultimately did not get saved. Here's a look on board with Swavely. Just that bit of contact, and it sends the 32 car for a spill. Avoids the inside wall, so that's good news there, but the entire field goes by, and the caution flag waves. For just the first time in stage 3, we have an issue, and we have a yellow flag. There is Hall picking up the field. And we will have this all settled inside the final 35. So whatever concern there was about pitting under green flag circumstances, well, that's crumbled up and thrown out the window. All right, so breaking the action here from Indianapolis, it is Hall, Peel, Maggio, Moreno, and Erb, the current running top 5. And just an update on cars that are 1 lap down or more. Lucky Dog will go to, I believe, Jeff Gilmore, who tonight making his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series start. And then Justin Hendry, 21st, is 1 lap down. Brad Fulham is out of this race, so there was trouble for the Canadian. He's 2 laps down and counting in 22nd. And then the aforementioned Chris Progar and Eric Schaefer, both playoff drivers, in trouble, 6 laps down, 23rd and 24th. As wholesale service begins on pit road, there's Progar and Hendry staying out for what it's worth to try and get their lap back. But this may be the money stop if we don't get a late race yellow from here on out. And it is going to be most likely 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, but maybe this could be the time in the race where 2 tires is a possibility. We've seen that a lot of times with Steven Maggio. A lot of the BBR guys have very much used the 2-tire call to their advantage. So far, everyone, though, 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, they are up and away. Zachary Hall gets out in front of Peel. Moreno trying to fight for second, and a 3-wide battle to the line at the pit road exit, and I believe Steven Maggio may have just beat them out. He did. And Moreno will take over the spot that Lawson Peel held. And the second place car during the green flag run will be put down to 4th. What a run off pit lane that was between those 3. Oh, the drama continues, right? We're going to have that off pit road. Had that in stage 1. May have it at the end of tonight's race. And Hall will pick up the iRacing official pace car. He will continue to lead more laps. Let's see if we can get a look at that pit road exit. Usually we have Francisco to help us off with the race from pit road, but this is how it all unfolded. So there's Hall coming out first. Blink and you miss it. You're going to see how exactly close that was between those 3. Maybe an inch or 2 between Maggio's front end and Moreno's front end. But KBueno Racing putting themselves in prime time position, 2nd and 3rd as they come into this evening's race. and what will be the final 34 laps from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Zachary Hall, the race leader for right now, with 91 laps complete. Final run to the finish line. Could it go green? Could it not? We'll just find out. You're tuned in to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Indianapolis. We'll be on the way in just a couple of moments.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Indy. 92 laps on the board with 33 laps to go. Our most recent caution coming out as a result of a spin between Richard Swavely, Brandon Banks, and Cedric Hunter. Swavely, a playoff driver, getting involved in that incident. He is all the way back in 12th place as we restart this event with Zachary Hall in control after running his first career stage at lap 60. Steven Maggio on his outside. Moreno on the inside of the second row with Columbus, Mississippi, and five-time winner Lawson Peel on the outside in position number 4. We've had a good one tonight. A lot of it could have come down to green flag strategy. Now with that caution, it's going to be a straight-up run to the finish line. Still a long green flag stretch needed to be completed with the pace car making its turn to the inside. And the green flag restart in the final 33 laps of the race. Solid jump by Moreno, squeeze to the outside and nearly puts a move on the race leader. Had him wiggling for a moment as they got to the short chute, but out of turn 2, Peel drops back. Maggio fighting for third with Stephen Harlow down the back straightaway. And there's that red, white, blue, and yellow, number 87. Great run to the bottom, peaks down to the inside. But how much does KBueno Racing work together now that they're second and third? We haven't really seen the teammates together since the opening lap incident, that they were faint 3 wide. Stempian came down and brought Moreno with him to bring out the opening caution of the race. The onboard look from Hall as they come out of turn 4. Oh, and there's a spinner in trouble behind. There's a car in trouble right to the outside wall. And there is a car in dire straits. Justin Erb being that driver for TOW Racing, and after Chris Progar struggles tonight, Justin Erb the victim of a melee on the front straightaway. And that's a lot of damage to the silver and orange Chevrolet of Erb. He's going to get around the rookie, Jeff Gilmore. Oh man, it is an ugly car as it's torn up as it goes by his teammate, and he's going to recoup track position, but for what it's worth, that car is junked. So here's a look at how it all unfolded. Battle with Lawson Peel as they're coming out of the final corner. Remember, Peel had started outside of row 2 on the restart, but dropped back with the lack of momentum. There was Stempian on the outside. Peel shuts off any supply to the outside lane, and Peel is the man involved in this. So the main driver, other than Justin Erb, is going to be Lawson Peel, and the dominant driver of the series involved in our latest incident. And here's a look from Erb. As Peel shuts the momentum down, Herb goes to the inside and turns Peel hard into the inside wall. And then Herb comes right back. Kip Easley with great evading action. Brandon Banks not so lucky. And for the first time tonight, Lawson Peel is in a very bad spot, deep in the ocean water, and there is a lot of damage to the front end of his Chevrolet. He is on pit road. Potential suspension damage as well. We know here on iRacing, that is a killer with the next-gen car. You'll be down there for several minutes, and more often than not, you'll fall down a lap or more. And at a track where Peel considered one of his favorites, a favorite to win tonight, odds on other than Zachary Hall, Peel will struggle. And now he's got to figure out how to fix this race car and get it back in the game with 30 laps remaining here from the Brickyard. A heartbreaker for Peel. If there's any silver lining, it's that he comes into this race with a ton of points in his back pocket, 1,081 total. But, of course, the negative being his car basically torn up as he tries to get it repaired, and the pit crew already in hard work as they're going to figure out how to get this 9 car back underway. We'll see if we can get a look with Brandon Banks as he got some front right damage as a result of that incident off of turn 4. And he was way back in the group. With a bit more time to react, here's a look on board with Banks as the field comes off the final corner. You'll faintly see his teammate in trouble right about here. And that's where they travel down to the inside, and Banks slowing down a bit late. His teammate Kip easily getting away, but not enough for Brandon Banks to fully escape the carnage. And that's the damage dealt. Don't think it's suspension damage for Banks, although he is also on pit road, and ironically, he's going to be right behind his teammate in Lawson Peel. So 2 of the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets find themselves in peril with a huge wreck down the back straightaway. And it's a tough look for them. Peel, of course, dominant as a force. Brandon Banks, you know, he's in a tougher situation than Peel is, of course. Not with a lot of playoff bonus points. And he came into this one 6th in the playoff standings. And still a pretty good margin back to the other driver in the lane. And, of course, a lot of the other guys beneath the top 12. But still, it is going to be a harsh reality for those 2 to face. As we'll see if we can get a word with Lawson Peel involved in that. Lawson, of course, that big crash there off of turn 4. You got touched there by Justin Herb. What happened there from your perspective, and what did you feel behind the wheel?
Yeah, Ethan got a bad start in front of me, and that just stacked us way back. I washed really bad through 2, and so Stimpian cleared me, and then down there in 3 and 4, I got under him, and then he cleared me, and Herb crossed me under, and it looked like he just turned me. I don't know if I really don't know, but I just kind of took the lap here. I had 7.5 minutes, so took a lap here. Looked like I'll be the only one down, so I'm down to about 4 minutes now. So hopefully just get another caution, get the lap back, and, you know, maybe we can get some of it fixed, make some kind of comeback. We'll see.
You know, a lot of drivers talk about the negatives in situations like this in a playoff format that rewards consistency, rewards race victories. But for you, you've picked up so many wins. You've done well through the Charlotte race yesterday or last weekend, and most of tonight's race, that you have a lot of points built up that you could be able to fall back on. Is that a bit of a silver lining? Does that help soften the blow a little bit in a case like this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's just the benefit of racking up points, is to have a buffer and a cushion in the event that something happens. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover, and I probably need at least 1 or 2 more cautions here. But, yeah, we'll be relying on the points for sure. Hopefully, we can just have a clean race at Watkins Glen next week and in advance.
Well, hopefully there's a comeback in store for you tonight, but if not, hopefully things go well at Watkins Glen. Thank you for your time, Lawson, and best of luck on the restart.
No problem. See you guys.
So Lawson Peel with a beat-up race car will try and continue on, and he did come out of pit road in enough time to avoid getting put 2 laps down. He will be the car at the lucky dog position with 1 lap down from the field in 21st place. Good news for Peel, though, is that he is the only car 1 lap down. There is Chris Progar, who's the next car in line, but he is 5 laps down. He gained a lap after the recent yellow flag that just came out with Justin Herb and Peel. And so thankfully Peel will be in a position where he really isn't fighting with anyone else for that lucky dog position, and for right now isn't at mercy of being bounced out should a yellow flag come out sooner than later. For Justin Erb, with all the damage he picked up on his Chevrolet, got most of it fixed, but the silver car is back in 16th. That's where he'll restart on the outside of the 8th row, as Zachary Hall will bring the field around from the final corner. He'll continue to lead laps here at Indianapolis. We'll get our restart here ready for you as we enter the final 27 laps of this race. Pace car down, and we'll see if we can get another green flag run. Hall and Moreno to the green flag restart. Once again, solid getaway for those on the inside and a bit of a hobble for those on the top group of the racetrack. Moreno ends up dialing back to 4th as a result of the lack of momentum from that restart zone. And so he'll dodge back Stephen Harlow in a fight with Cedric Hunter. They'll try and decide their position out of turn 2 with Kip easily in the mix. Highest we've seen the 8 car tonight. And Warren Kyle Keith slowly but surely putting his comeback run together. He steps up into 9th place, nose to tail for the top 3 spots going into turn 3. And now Stepien fires off to the inside. Pivot down low, car has no grip, nearly puts Maggio into the wall. And now Moreno will help. He wants 3 wide. Moreno's going to get it. Outside top 3 as they head to turn 1. And Stepien plays the defense. A fire off of the ages for Moreno. Didn't want to help his teammate and nearly loses the car in turn 1. 25 to go at the stripe. And Zachary Hall in control by this much. It's not a lot. Reminiscent of the stage 1 finish, but with Cedric Hunter in the catbird seat. And Hall, who has dominated off of stage 2 from here on then, looking for his first career victory, and it could come at a very special place in his heart. 25 to go as they come across to the stripe. It's Hall, Maggio, Moreno, Stepien, and Muscarella, a race high top 5 for the 48 car. We haven't seen Muscarella all of tonight, but it's a race he needs to get back in this mix and escape the cut line. And boy, it's been a topsy-turvy evening after starting 15th this evening. He's been as low as 22nd, near dead last in this race. But he'll have a fight on his hands off of turn 2. Stephen Harlow makes his effort down low. Stepien takes away 3rd. Moreno will have to back out. He'll way down in 4th. And they have pulled away from the rest of this group. But the real question is, how long will it take until these guys at the front start to accordion again? Countless times we've seen in this race, whether it be 2, 3, or 4 cars max, when they start to fight, everyone 5th on back, and the cars that have a distinct gap to make up, they start to make easy work of it, and it becomes very easy for the rest of this race. There's Cedric Hunter, stage 1 winner, or stage 1 second place finisher, as he tries to fight Stephen Harlow to turn 1. And Harlow pushes forward. And white, orange, and dark silver race car as he pushes forward. Said that twice. But Alex Muscarella right in front, fellow silver car. And it's Steven Stepien, Stephen Maggio, and Zachary Hall through the top 3. Maggio continuing to chase. But for real, it may be just a strategy of holding on to the last set of Goodyear Eagles if there is a late race restart, but saving the tire set you have now. And it's helped out Maggio for most of this race. That's what's helped him move up through track position. We remember back in stage 2 off of the restart, he was as far back as 7th place in the standings in the running order for this race. And slowly but surely made his pickup through the field and was just as high as the top 3 right before that caution came out. And now has a distinct shot at working up to Zachary Hall while playing a bit of defense on the car behind. And it's a scheme for Maggio that has been very, very efficient Obviously, the scheme that brought him to his first victory at Pocono all those weeks ago. And then his second race victory, that Pitbull-inspired paint scheme where he accidentally showed up in a Toyota instead of a Chevrolet, but still walked away just as dominant as ever at a track that he considers his best on the iRacing platform as Mascarella dives in, lunge to turn 1, successful, paid off in a moment's notice, and Moreno drops back to 5th through the short chute. How about the run we are watching from Alex Mascarella tonight? Of course, 21st and dead last after disconnecting early at Charlotte last Sunday and didn't come out with a stunner of a playoff opener that he would have hoped to. His last top 10, 8th place, early May, at the place where Maggio captured his second victory, that Nashville Super Speedway. But since then, 15th, 24th, and 21st. And this evening in a top 5 brewing may be better if he can try and continue this push-up in 22 laps time. Could get his best finish of the playoffs, best finish in a long while. And one that he'll desperately need if he wants to get out of the cut line place coming into Watkins Glen. As Moreno continues to drop off, Stephen Harlow finds his way to the bottom end of the speedway. He'll charge in turn 2. Moreno fights back off the second corner. A bit of a wiggle there near the outside wall. And things get so close at the sideways or side-by-side fighting at the front of this field that one car could easily ricochet back down and make things much harder for you. And the onboard look with Harlow shows up the battle for second. Stepien finds the bottom end of the speedway on Maggio. They'll try to make it work through turn 4. And the good news for Stepien here, he's got teammate help. There's Mascarella down low. Contact between the two. They'll both get set up into turn 1. And Mascarella fires off down low. He'll connect to the bottom, find his teammate in draft. And now it's one more car to beat for the Massachusetts native with 20 laps to go from Indy. And what a race we've witnessed. Harlow and Moreno fighting for 5th place on back. As the Red Bull Chevrolet aims to survive in a pack of many single file cars. And now Harlow sends him up the racetrack. Here comes Cedric Hunter. Look to the inside for a moment's notice. He'll back out, and it's a long train all the way back to, I believe, Ross Harlow back in 11th place. And this run will not help Stephen here into turn 1. Cedric Hunter on the outside. Alex Mascarella tries to fight with Stephen Maggio, picking up what he's leaving off. And Droppin the Hammah as a team have started to make that surge in these final 20. As Maggio loose off turn 2, give away the spot. Mascarella in a race-high 3rd. How about the 48 car tonight? A journey to the front that's lasted a little while, but the Cobalt Chevrolet reaping what he's sowing right now in the final 20. As the lead gap remains at half a second. Zachary Hall, who we've mentioned so many times this season, has been in contention to win and an average finish of 3.5 in the last 2. That includes, yes, last week's race at Charlotte, and of course the race the 2 weeks prior to that in Daytona. And the 5 top 3 finishes, including, like we said, those 3 straight consecutive runner-up finishes, either Lawson Peel or to the other eventual race winners in the season. And at uniquely shaped 2+ mile ovals, Auto Club Speedway comes to mind, a race where Hall, under strategy, could have easily gone out and won that race. But Lawson Peel showed them who's boss at the end of that one and ended up capturing the victory, and one that Hall saw as one that slipped away. And with 18 laps to go at the stripe, he is looking down the barrel, looking down to his first career victory, as there's the fight for 5th, continuing off turn 4, Hunter and Moreno. And great stuff we're watching out of this mid-pack. A lot of good storylines. Of course, that 8th place car, that red and white Target Toyota, that is Warren Kyle Keith stepping up into the fold after the bulk of this race where he spent below the top 10, a lot of it top 15, maybe below that as well. And Keith, if he gets a late race yellow, could very well shoot up to this thing and be back in contention. Richard Swavely caused one of our recent yellows of the race. Spun off of turn 4 with help from Cedric Hunter. Got a bit of damage, but repaired what was left of his Toyota Camry. And the Rick man is back in action with a chance to run into the top 10 and continue his run through the points. And there's a look on board with the 32 running 9th. Can't quite get any better than that. Definitely helps when there's a shorter car count with 24 in this field tonight. As Ross Harlow makes the moves, loose off turn 2. That's what you're going to see a lot of here at Indianapolis. And already bulk of what we've seen today through stage 1 and stage 2. And again, even though what we're watching here is a quick dash to the finish line, it is still a pretty hefty run. These tires will start to squeal a little more over the course of the stretch. And as soon as we stay green, saving the Goodyear Eagles will matter a lot more than just having outright raw pace throughout the early portions of the laps. And already these guys running 18, now 19 laps on their set of Goodyear Eagles. So with 17 laps to go, they obviously can make it on a tank of fuel, but it's more about how they can hold on to the set that's underneath them and whether a yellow flag late in this race decides the fate of 2-tire, 4-tire calls, and the strategy can start to open up as Harlow and Hunter continue their auction up for P6. And Hunter's giving it his all right now. He hasn't been able to finally make a move to the inside. That 11 car stays up front. And Warren Kyle Keith, that tertiary car, hasn't unleashed a move, but it's part of what we've seen here at Indianapolis. A lot of those inside moves not panning out in fruition. You see all that energy put onto the very inside lane right across that white line of the racetrack. You see a lot of it in turn 4, left side tires near that rumble strip. So much energy put into that lane, slickens up over the course of the race, and a lot of our long green flag runs have helped that line develop and continue to slow down as we've progressed through the daytime conditions in sim. And a lot of that results in very hard to pass conditions on the inside of the track. We've seen a lot of power moves from the outside. As a result, you go about half a lane to a full lane higher and you can find grip up there, but right now, fastest line continues to be one, clinging to the bottom of the speedway. Things have calmed down in this battle for P6. And so Harlow will get a bit of breathing room here, will separate himself from Hunter as the closest fight on the racetrack is actually for second place. Steven Stempien has let Zachary Hall run away with this deal. 1.8 seconds between the two cars and about less than a car length between second and third off 4. Great onboard look from the Massachusetts native who spends his time off the sim as a dealership employee at a Chevrolet dealer. And trying to push his Chevrolet to a second victory in the season. And one that will advance him into the round of 12, while Maggio here, the non-playoff guy, just the only one playing spoiler if he's not Ethan Fonseca Moreno. And swiveling down the back straightaway, Maggio finds an entry point, and Stempien says, I'll let you have it. I think it's a purposely put move by Stempien there. Very smart to not fight Maggio too hard. Let the 97 car move up. And for Stempien right now, given his playoff scenario, he knows even with the third place finish tonight, he will be in good hands heading into the only road course of the playoffs at Watkins Glen, New York. And just a reminder as well that the next several races, ones to very much keep in tabs with. This Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs is only going to continue to elevate in intensity. Obviously, our volatile round of 16 with Charlotte, Indianapolis tonight, and then our next week's race at the Watkins Glen Road Course. That'll be June 15th here on the KBueno Racing Network. Then we kick off in the Lone Star State for the round of 12. That'll be Texas Motor Speedway for race 18 of the series, Bristol Motor Speedway for the secondary race, and then Darlington acts as the cutoff for the round of 12. We'll deduce our field down to 8 cars, and then that's where they will battle it out between Kansas, Talladega, and the newly named Echo Park Speedway, formerly known as the Atlanta Motor Speedway. We did get confirmation as well from race officials and the admins of this series that Atlanta race, which is the penultimate event of the season, right before we decide the championship 4, it's a super speedway race. That's going to be at that 1.5-mile reconfigured super speedway that made its way onto the NASCAR scene in early 2022. How about the physicality and the contact? The spinner, Stephen Harlow and Warren Kyle Keith caught up in a tango off of turn 1. And that will bring out the yellow with 12 laps to go. And another heartbreak for the 11 car. Well, this race just turned on its head. A frustrated Harlow gets back underway, trying to assess the full severity of the damage on his car as he comes through the road course part of the speedway. And we'll have to get right back through the grass. But it's a big crash as Harlow was hemorrhaging position through the top 10. Warren Kyle Keith made his way to the inside, and not even the 78 car can evade any of the issues so far this evening from the Brickyard. Let's get a look at how this all unfolded. Fight in turn 2 for position. And Harlow just washes up a bit high, and it's very much harmless because they're at an equal distance of each other. There isn't necessarily a nose to quarter panel moment. That is until they get up to the wall. That little kick out that you see from the safer barrier that sort of transitions into that normal concrete surface, the concrete barrier there off of turn 2. That's where you find the bulk of the issues. We got another look here. And so Harlow's down low, washes up through the corner, and it's harmless up until right there. And that's where Keith catches the quarter panel of Harlow's Chevrolet, sends both of them up into the outside wall. And for the second week in a row, it is a crashed Chevrolet for the 11 machine of Stephen Harlow. Thankfully, he's not knocked out of this race completely. His car, I don't believe, has suspension damage on it. But he will be back in 20th, and he will lose a ton of time, may even fall a lap down. That will be a saving grace, though, for Lawson Peel, who will get the lucky dog and will wave around the field, even with all the damage he has on his car. And here we go. Crucial pit stops inside the final 10 laps. We'll set the table for you. 2 tires or 4 tires could easily be the call for either of these guys. And we've seen Steven Maggio, Ethan Fonseca Moreno utilize a 2-tire call to absolute perfection. It's a late enough run where they can do it. The question is, do they pull the trigger? Field led by Zachary Hall as Peel gets the wave around. It's going to be a brawl as they come off the pit lane. In comes Hall. There's Maggio, Stempian, Moreno, the rest of the field comes on through, and the question is who will get out first. 2-tire call for Alex Muscarella. Jacks are down for the rest of the field, and here comes Zachary Hall. Here comes Steven Maggio. Maggio will lead the field off of pit road on a 2-tire call. A 9-second stop gets the 97 car in control with under 10 laps to play. Wow. And it was also a 2-tire call for Zachary Hall, just a little slower though, 9.7 seconds. That's the difference, by the way. And 2-tire calls have, of course, worked in the favor of Maggio so many times. Late race at Pocono. Good strategy, put him at the front with a raw pace that kept him at the edge, and the 97 car captured his first career victory. Then, at Nashville Super Speedway, dominated over the long run and put his Chevrolet, well, at the time it was a Toyota, up to the front, and was able to go away with the win. And now on a 2-tire call, searching for a trifecta, with Zachary Hall back in second, Muscarella diving in third. And it's a really interesting position that we're seeing out of these drivers tonight, because if Steven Maggio wins, that is stealing 5 bonus points to any of the playoff runners in this field that could very well come away with the victory, either an edge in the round of 12 or just a full-on advancement. But for Steven Maggio, for Ethan Fonseca Moreno, they don't care what the playoff situation is like. They want to race clean, they want to race hard, but most importantly, they want to race for checkered flags. And if Maggio or Moreno are able to win tonight, that is an advancement that is stolen away for the rest of the green bannered field. If Hall is able to win, it would be his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series dub. The same goes for Muscarella. And then back in 5th, the lurking Cedric Hunter, who finished runner-up in Stage 1 to this man right here in Maggio. And as they restart this race, will be on the inside of the 3rd row. So let's set the table for you. Inside 8 laps to go on the restart. Maggio with the race leader looking for win number 3. Zachary Hall in position to win his first career race on the outside of the front row. Alex Muscarella has made a whale of a run through this third stage from as low as the top 15 and maybe even lower than that to a top 5 run. He'll be on the inside of the second row with Ethan Fonseca Moreno lining up the outside of the second row in P4. And then back in 5th, Cedric Hunter, P6, going to Steven Stempion, Richard Swavely back in 7th, Ross Harlow, Kip Easley, and Craig Parks rounding out the top 10. By the way, a race-high top 10 for the 17 of Parks. That's the Talladega winner who came into this race in a position where he was only 4 points above the cut line with 1,032 in the back pocket. So it's a late race restart here from the Brickyard. Not something that we haven't seen before. We saw those 2 overtime attempts at Charlotte Motor Speedway last Sunday, which completed a trifecta of 1.5 mile races run so far this season that did end in overtime. And at Pocono also came down to a late race run that gave Maggio the victory in a hard-fought situation. And now he's got to scrap and fight and play as much defense as possible. 2 tires between the top 2. 2 tires as well for 3rd and 4th. The first car on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. You got to look back to 6th place in Steven Stempion. Who will find the crown here at the Brickyard? Maggio and Hall will take the field off of turn 4 to the restart zone for what may be the final time. Decent jump, green flag with 8 laps to go. And it's a solid jump by the leader. Hall is getting pushed up high in turn 1. No whoa up. Moreno has to get off the gas pedal when it congests the rest of the pack off turn 2. And now it's side by side, 2 rows deep. Stempion on the 4 fresh goodies. There's on the inside with Alex Muscarella trying to force Hall up the racetrack in turn 3. And all the while, Maggio is saying goodbye. Hall is hard into the wall. Muscarella will get back to the inside. Bottom alley fight, side by side, nearly 3 rows deep off of turn 4, and this is still far from over. It is pandemonium from second on back, and now here's Moreno with a huge shunt from Cedric Hunter right behind, and it's a pack race in turn 1. And they'll settle it out. Muscarella is loose. Through the short chute, he saves it down low. And Hall escapes off the mayhem. They're still spreading around off the second corner. And there's nowhere to go for Moreno. We'll be at the back end of the freight train with the draft. Meanwhile, Steven Maggio is 1.3 seconds clear, coming to 6 laps to go. And what a disastrous sequence of events that was for everyone second on back. Zachary Hall will have to make up a 2nd and 2/10 in the next 6 laps. An onboard look from the Newport, North Carolinian. And facing what could be his 4th ever runner-up finish in this series, to which he's seen many. And right now, has to dig in and find something to give him some extra speed to beat that 97 car. Again, these 2 are on the 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and the first car on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles is the 88 car of Stempion running 4th. But it's going to be a long road. Last lap, 51/8 across the board between your top 2. And there is only mounting pressure for 3rd on back. There's Stempion picking his nose to the inside. The Hello Kitty Toyota Camry will play some defense. There's contact. They're rubbing off each other and leaning on each other. Down to the yard of bricks. Fight for 4th place. Now to 3rd in turn 1. And there's Moreno just hanging in the background waiting for the curtains to dispel. The 87 car with a chance to push himself into the podium again, with Ross Harlow out of a cannon right behind him. And no response from the 45. Stempion up to 3rd. And the gap is at 1.1 seconds and marginally closing between Hall and Maggio, as the 97 car will encounter 4 laps to go from Indianapolis this time by. And there's the gap. It may be too far to overcome. Maybe another restart needed for the 23 car to make inroads. There's the 16 of Ross Harlow down to the inside. He'll make a move for 5th place, as Hunter found the bottom end of Steven Stempien's Chevrolet and could not make the move happen. The onboard look from the Massachusetts native as they chase for 3 to go. And it's such a long straightaway. You can think about what you're going to do. Hunter peels up high and negates his move into turn 3. And this is just going to be for consolation. 3rd on back. Good playoff runs for either of them regardless. Good points needed for the next race at Watkins Glen. But at the front of this field, it's still 7/10 of a second and a bit of a gap between these two. But Zachary Hall was faster, nearly by 3/10 at the last time. And will this come down to a photo finish like it did in stage 1? Will there be any magic left for Zachary Hall? As Maggio has run a very complete race. He's spent most of this event inside the top 5. He's led a bunch of laps. He's been the most patient through the tire saving strategy. And with a call that he likes to cling to best, a 2-tire decision got him up front. Maggio is going to try to cling on to his 3rd career victory. 2 laps to go from Indianapolis, and it's 6/10 of a second. And Maggio can smell it. He can see Zachary Hall in the mirror, getting closer and closer the last time by. Another 2/10 chopped off. And Maggio is struggling on the old tires as he tries to make use of this final run to the finish line. And as long as he can keep this gap where it is at half a second, it may be more than enough to carry on to the victory. As they fight for 4th behind, Cedric Hunter and Ross Harlow going to try to go at it inside the top 5 right behind Stempien. Moreno and Harlow now going at it. They'll end up for 5th. As Maggio will cross turn 4, he'll see the Art of Bricks for what may be the final time. White flag in the air from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Hall now within 4/10 of a second as we cross to the white flag. One more lap needed for the rookie driver in Maggio to keep up, as Hall will try and mount one last effort. And out of turn 2, it stays the same. It's 3/10 of a second now, down to the back straightaway. A near mirror image lap. Hall gonna try to get all of the fumes out of that number 23 to try and get to his first race victory, or will it be a 4th ever runner-up finish in the series? Final 2 corners from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Maggio, Hall, as they race to turn 4. Will there be a fight to the finish line? Here comes Hall off the final corner. Chase to the Art of Bricks. Final effort from Hall. Not there enough. Steven Maggio wins his 3rd career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series race. And the time expired in the perfect way. Steven Maggio, in just his 6th career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series start, will visit victory lane. And there are the congratulatory taps. Steven Stempien saying attaboy. He ended up 4th, Cedric Hunter in 3rd. And once again, Zachary Hall ends up short. In a race that could have nearly gone a lap more with Zachary Hall in favor, ends up coming to a close right at the snip of time to let the 97 car stay in control as the field continues their celebratory gestures to the Branch Chevrolet. His first win since Nashville Superspeedway, and this one a special one from the Brickyard. Always special to win at Indianapolis. And maybe special and maybe a bit stressful in the way that Maggio got it done. Dropping the Hammah victory lane for the 3rd career moment for the 97 of Stephen Maggio. It's been a season of consistency and a ton of either race wins or near race wins for Maggio. And still a start that will last in his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career forever as he burns it down on the front straightaway. Probably going to be a method not to burn out on the Yard of Bricks. But nonetheless, Stephen Maggio gets it done here from the Brickyard. And we'll park it right alongside the start-finish line, possibly as the celebrations continue. 3rd career victory in only his 6th career start. Maggio will enjoy the celebrations, and he will continue on as we had a whale of a run to the finish, nearly a photo finish between the 2 leaders, but ultimately it comes out in the favor of the 97 car. So here's a look at the unofficial results here after 125 laps from Indianapolis. Stephen Maggio, the race victor. Zachary Hall with his 4th ever runner-up finish, but still a finish that would get him a great position in the point standings coming down to the cutoff race next week at Watkins Glen. Cedric Hunter, despite winning last week at Charlotte and despite having no pressure, he ends up with a podium finish. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we cover out our coverage tonight on the KBueno Racing Network. Steven Stepien puts his 88 car to 4th, solid effort for the Massachusetts native with Ross Harlow in 5th. Ethan Fonseca Moreno had a strong 87 car to the late stages of the race, but just couldn't hold on through the traffic that was fighting all around him at the end. He ends up in P6. Warren Kyle Keith recovers after trouble midway through the race to end up in 7th. Alex Muscarella gets his best run of the playoffs in 8th. Justin Erb back in 9th, recovering after a big crash down the front straightaway. And Kip Easley closes out the top 10 here from the Brickyard. Back in 11th is where you'll find Craig Parks. A great run for the 17 cars. Stephen Harlow back in 12th place. Justin Hendry, a race high 13th. James Kunkel back in 14th place with Timothy Stubblefield. His first playoff start results in a 15th place finish. He probably does need either a win or a really, really good point stay next week at the Watkins Glen International Circuit if he wants to advance to the next round. Kevin Roy back in 16th. Brandon Banks in 17th. Lawson Peel back in 18th with a heavily damaged race car. Richard Swavely ends up in 19th place, and Casey Knighton racks up the rest of the top 20. And here are the final 4. Jeff Gilmore in his first ever start is 21st. Chris Progar back in 22nd. Eric Schaefer 23rd. And Brad Fulham 39 laps down in 24th place. Big struggles for Eric Schaefer and Chris Progar as they will see what happens come Watkins Glen 1 week from tonight. But we will have a chance to talk with a driver who ends up in Droppin the Hammah victory lane for the 3rd time this season. We are now joined by Stephen Maggio in the car of the 97. Stephen, what a run it was. You put the 2-tire call to use just like you do more often than not in these late race caution situations. In those final laps, so Hall was catching. What was going through your mind as you guys were chasing to the checkered?
Flying, man. I don't know how these guys have the short run pace. I guess that's where I need to work on. But I mean, he was so fast all day, and yeah, I don't think I was gonna catch him. And then that late caution came out, and I was like, I'm taking 2 for sure. But I from racing Zach, I knew that I knew he was gonna take 2 as well because he has in the previous races. And I don't know what happened on that restart, but they saw they were side by side, and I had like a second lead by the time the first lap ended, and I think I had like a 2-second lead by the time the second lap ended. I think they were just side by side battling, but then that gave me a huge buffer, and I guess I needed all of it because he caught me, and I won by less than a 10th because he was just flying there. So shout out to him. I mean, he ran an amazing race. I think he was the fastest car tonight. I guess he got unlucky in the pit stops. Maybe his picker gave him a bad stop or something. That was able to get me the lead and the clean air, and really not even the clean air, just to not have to battle anyone because people were racing so aggressive tonight. Like not leaving any room and stuff. So I think that was the difference maker. But yeah, happy I was able to get it done.
3rd career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory in just your 6th start. I don't know if you imagined to make such an impact early on in this series as you joined midway with your teammates Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Jaden Porter. How is it now that you're kind of looking back on it and you've got 3 race victories, especially with the way you had to work hard tonight to rummage through the green flag scenarios, end up with this 2-tire call here and outlast for the win?
Yeah, I'm happy to be getting wins, and I guess making an impact is good. Hopefully, it's a good impact. I have a little bit of contact with some people, so I try to race clean. I try to race with as much respect as possible. Like I said in my interview after stage 1, I obviously did not mean to get into Steven. I pushed him down the straightaway clear, so I wasn't trying to get into him. I just kind of misjudged it, which is kind of ironic because when you guys broadcasted forward here, lap 2, turn 1, I got punted into the wall and I had like 5 minutes of damage, and then I kind of punted him into the wall there on the first lap of this race. So, yeah, that wasn't great, but I hope I'm making a positive impact and that people respect me and everything like that. So happy to be running well and getting wins.
I know you told us right before the playoffs started that you really liked the caliber, the selection of these racetracks. It started with Charlotte, and of course Indianapolis goes your way here tonight. What do you see in the rest of the schedule? You're in that position where you're not a playoff driver, not running for a championship. What other tracks kind of catch your eye as we come down to Homestead at the end of the season?
Let me get the schedule up here. Watkins Glen, I'm not a huge road course racer. Lawson Field is really good there, and I think Ethan is as well. And I haven't done a road course in this league, so I don't know if there's any other people that are really good there. But it's still a fun track. I enjoy that. Texas is pretty fun. It depends on the temperature for me at least. And Bristol's a good track for me. Really, all of them. I don't know if that's Legacy Atlanta or not, but I don't think it is. All of them, but Homestead are really fun and good tracks for me. I guess I'll just use Homestead to try to get a little better, but I'm looking forward to the whole schedule. Honestly, I'm excited. Got the win tonight. Really wish I didn't make a bonehead move and stay out last week because I feel like I could have and should have won the first 2 races of the playoffs, but we'll see how many more we can get.
A lot of redemption here tonight. I remember you were pretty frustrated after staying out and seeing the old tire call not pan out. You get revenge here tonight, this time in a 2-tire call. Steven, congratulations on the victory here from Indianapolis. Before we send you off for the celebrations, anybody that you want to thank for the run?
Yeah, shout out you in the booth for broadcasting. I'll watch the race back as I always do. And Francisco's not here tonight, but shout out him. Hopefully he's having fun at his concert. Shout out the league owners, Steve Sempian and Chris Progar, and my teammates, Ethan and Tim. Jaden wasn't here tonight. Tim Stubblefield and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Shout out Zachary, like I said, he was super fast tonight. Shout out Cedric. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He's got to tell me. But shout out to him. We had a really fun battle to end the stage 1 there, and I think that's about it.
Well, Steven, if you watch back the broadcast and you hear any stumbles from me, no, you didn't. So it was
Okay.
all solo dolo tonight. But Steven, on a serious note, congratulations on the victory here tonight from the Brickyard. A great race at the end of it, and you held on for the victory. Hopefully we'll see you next week at Watkins Glen International.
Thank you. Also, shout out Rivers Jones. I know he's watching. He's a loyal supporter, and Jamie Ray as well. Thank you.
Shout out Rivers Jones. That's Steven Maggio, the race victor here from Indianapolis, and it was a tight-knit victory for the 97 car because right behind him, charging in the waning laps, was Zachary Hall, who will join us now from second place. Zachary, I know that after these many runner-up finishes, it's kind of Kyle Larson-esque early in his career, right? Bittersweet in the sense that they are really good runs, but they just happen to be very close to a victory. You fell back a second after the battles off of the restart, but you clawed your way back to catch up to Maggio through that final lap. What was that perspective like, and what did you feel was missing there? Maybe an extra lap here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, maybe one more. I didn't think I was ever going to get there. Once we all settled out, whatever happened on that restart, yeah, I think it was about like 1.3 at that point. I'm like, well, I'm out of the draft, so it's going to be really tough. And then he kind of put 2 good laps together, and I was like, yeah, we're not going to catch him. And then I kind of, I don't know, I just kind of just thought maybe just run as fast as I can, and it started clicking off, I think, my best laps in a row, and it got close. I knew I was going to run out of time. Just, you can kind of tell, like, you get like that 2-3 tenths, and it's certain corners that I could really see I was gaining, and that was such a heartbreak, man. Just, I wish that caution when it came out. We were so fast. I don't know what it is about this track. This place, it's a place where I feel like I don't even have to save to just be even faster in the long runs. It's just, I don't know. It just really fits my style, and it's a tough one to lose. I'll tell you that. I really wanted that one.
Yeah, and I remember last week you didn't want to call your shot, but Cedric certainly had a lot of confidence in you to be one of the favorites to win this race, and you definitely proved it. It looked, though, that the tides really changed from stage 1 to stage 2. It felt like in that secondary half of the race is where this car really started to come about to life. What kind of changed there, and was it just a track position situation, or what happened for you behind the wheel that helped you move up to the front and then dominate what was stage 2 and then ultimately what came about in this final stage?
Yeah, it was weird. I never qualify well here, which is weird. You think with all the speed I got, it would qualify well, but I kind of knew that coming in, so I was like, I had the whole mindset of early in the race, just figure it out and just get better and better because I didn't get that much practice, and I was like, I was, optimistic in practice session. I was like, it might fall my way if I drive right. I think I just got better and better and better at hitting my marks, and then finally, once I got clean air, I was like, I don't want to give this back up because I know the draft is strong, but as soon as I got out there, I felt like I could literally just do whatever I wanted with my line choice. So it really benefited once I got out, of course, track position wise. But I think it's just patience, man. This place is a place you really have to make sure you hit your marks. You see people, you can go fast. You can really, really go up there and run fast. But if you're overworking the tires, you're going to drop back quickly. And if you're not, hitting your marks, even on the long run, you're going to be sliding around. So it's a place where you just got to keep, gradually each and every lap hitting those marks. And it kind of feels similar almost to a road course. So it's one of those places I really feel comfortable.
Well, it all works out, of course, second place tonight, and going into these playoffs, you had a pretty decent position, although you had to kind of fight a little bit. You were matched up with a lot of the guys 11th on back in the standings, but coming out of Charlotte with the finish you had, you really boosted your projections a lot. 1,054 points, third in the standings. This will definitely keep you up there with a solid buffer going into Watkins Glen. So how is the approach for you like as you step into this final race of the round of 16 at a road course?
Well, after tonight, I think, like you said, we're gonna, build on that gap a good bit, and it feels good because I came in on the cut line now with no playoff points. Kind of disappeared there late in the regular season. I wasn't putting as much really time and effort into it, and just kind of showing up and racing. And I feel like now the playoffs, I'm gonna really try to put my best foot forward. So hopefully with Watkins Glen, we got this new update coming to this week. I'm excited for this because I really feel like what I'm lacking on road courses is just raw speed, and I'm hoping maybe we'll see a little bit of tire fall off, similar to what we do in Watkins Glen in real life. But you never know with these builds; it could go one way or the other. So I'm really hoping it becomes a tire management game again on road courses where you don't have to, where we'll be changing tires hopefully at some point during the race. So it's one of those things that's going to be just, I guess, figured out during the week and see what we could do. But I definitely feel confident with the road course to end it out. It's definitely up there and probably, one of my favorite things to do in this sim. So I'm really excited for that. And then just try to get to that next round because I think the next round's even a good one too.
Going to be a lot of homework, a lot of note-taking for everybody in this field and every driver of the next-gen car next Tuesday when that build update eventually comes out. Zachary, a great run tonight from the Brickyard. Before we let you go on this second-place finish, anybody that you want to thank?
Shout out to, first off, you, Kenneth, man. It's always a pleasure to go back and watch it. I can't wait to go see this one. I want to see what it looked like because definitely didn't get to see much there at the end of the battle, and I kind of was able to get away from everybody, so that was cool. But definitely go back and see how it all unfolded. So shout out to you. Shout out to all the league admins here who help put it on here at the league each and every week. Shout out to my teammate Cedric Hunter out there at Category 5 Esports. And also shout out to Steven. He's a really good competitor, and I was, it was tough to lose to him, but he's a great racer. So I really got to give him a huge congrats for winning.
Well, Zach, we really appreciate the time and a very valiant effort here from Indianapolis. Congratulations on the runner-up finish, and we'll see you in the rest of the field take on Watkins Glen, first and only road course of the playoffs. Should be a lot of fun.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Zachary Hall in his 23 Toyota Camry ends up in second place. We'll talk to his teammates, Cedric Hunter, and for the second straight time in these Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, Category 5 Esports has a way to put themselves on the podium. We're with Cedric Hunter now. Cedric, off of the win at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, told us obviously no real pressure for the rest of this round, but you wanted to do as well as you could no matter what, and tonight was a proper example of that. You fell short of the stage 1 victory, but you really rallied back in this final stage. What did that all feel like there in that final run?
I felt pretty good. I mean, I got most of my damage fixed after the I tried to do whatever I could to get the stage 1 win there, and I walled to myself, and it gave me actually a decent chunk of damage, surprisingly. So I was kind of on the back nine for the rest of the race, and finally got the car to feel somewhat normal there on the last run, and had some speed back in it. So felt good, obviously, to be running up front after 90 or so laps not doing so. So we had a shot, obviously, at I guess if Calamity would have happened last couple laps, I guess we had a shot at it technically, but I'll take definitely a top 3. It's way better than I thought. I would have finished halfway through that race. So we'll take it.
Very solid run tonight, and you guys end up at a road course next week. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but talking to the drivers and just hearing the inputs over the course of the race, it seemed like a lot of the drivers, maybe including yourself, dealing with right rear tire saving, cars that snap loose, a lot of push oversteer, a little bit. Did you feel any of that, particularly in the long green flag runs when we had a bulk of those in stage 1 and stage 2?
I felt like the tire wear was really bad for me in the first run, like being out in clean air, trying to push, I guess, as a leader, and not really knowing, what kind of pace I had to set to really dictate kind of saving, but still being fast. And I think I roasted my stuff. Obviously, those guys ran me back down. And the next 2 runs, I felt actually pretty good on my tires. Thankfully, when you have guys in front of you, when you have, the draft and everything, you kind of rely on the draft to be most of your speed. So I was really backing up the corners, and my I felt like my long run pace was really good, and the balance felt pretty neutral. I also obviously made some changes with like the brake bias where I dialed it way back to the rear, and that kind of helped save the right front and keep the balance pretty comfortable too. So other than that, so the racing tonight was like super close. It was a lot of fun, a lot of side drafting, and there's a couple of times, I guess, where myself and other guys kind of got into each other. So, to all the drivers out there that's going to tune in tomorrow or in the next couple of days, if I got into the side of you, my bad. Obviously, not what I'm trying to do. Just you got to race hard to get positions around here.
It's going to be scrappy at a road course next week, but knowing that you are progressively advanced into the next round should be a lot of fun for you. I'm sure of that. Cedric, before we let you go here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway from a 3rd place run, anybody that you want to thank for tonight's finish?
Absolutely, man. I want to give a huge shout out to my teammate Zach. I think everybody could kind of agree that he was probably the fastest guy tonight. I had that thing locked up if it wasn't for the last couple yellows that came out there, but still a good P2 finish for himself. Huge shout out to you for doing the broadcast, everybody for tuning in, the admins for setting this all up and doing everything that they do, and the drivers that came out tonight.
Well, Cedric, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the podium finish. And knowing you're already advanced, so obviously we're going to say congratulations again, but best of luck as we head into Watkins Glen next Sunday.
I appreciate it. A new update too, so it's going to be great. So, yeah.
Everyone's going to wrestle on it, including myself. I'm going to figure out just how different that car is. But, Cedric, we appreciate the time. Congrats on the 3rd place.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
So, once again, the runner-up and the 3rd place car, they're going to end up being Category 5 Esports Toyota Camrys. It continues to be a very much dominant effort by those 2 drivers. Hall short again of the race victory. He's knocking on the door. Maybe it comes here in the postseason at the right time. So as we move out of the Brickyard and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we enter the first and only road course race of the playoffs this year. Watkins Glen, New York will greet the field next Sunday night, June 15th, 2025. You'll find the coverage at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the KBueno Racing Network. We'll try to get that coverage to you as best as possible from the road course in Watkins Glen. Last time we went road course racing, Lawson Peel walked away with a very dominant victory. Can he try to do it all over again and get that golden ticket into the round of 12? We continue on the week after at Texas Motor Speedway, Bristol, then Darlington after, Kansas, Talladega, Atlanta, and that leads us right into the finale, the championship for racing for a title in mid-August at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. One elephant in the room that we did not mention is the new update coming out to the next-gen cars, and that is including aerodynamic differences in the race car, as well as a tire update. They are bringing over the tire from the GTP car. They had developed a new tire model for the prototype car and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series. They have evolutionized that tire. They're bringing it to the NASCAR Next Gen car, and it won't exactly operate the same way as it would with a prototype, but it is an advanced tire model, so we will get a very different handling race car, as well as a CFD-based aero drafting model. So these cars will handle in traffic, according to iRacing, much more realistically to what we see in the real-life NASCAR Cup Series. So as the drivers get a handle on what this update is about, we'll try and update you on how that in fact updates and how that really affects the drivers, whether we get any patches from the Season 3 2025 update or not. It should be a lot of fun, though, to figure out which drivers will survive, which drivers will be better than others, and how differently you have to drive the next-gen car as a result. But that'll do it for us here at the KBueno Racing Network. For all of our partners at the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, for league owners Chris Progar and Steven Stampian, for all the lovely members that make up the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer, Eli Comerford, Keelan Belsha, and for our colleague in the booth tonight that's at a Metallica concert, that is Francisco Bacallao, I am Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Indianapolis, and a heartfelt congratulations to Steven Maggio on his third career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series victory.